Let's call this meeting to order at 5:32 on Wednesday, May 20th. And just to let folks know as you're coming in, if you would like to speak, please send a message through the chat box. Otherwise, Karen will likely mute you all, but if for some reason she doesn't, please mute yourselves so that we don't have tons of background noise. And are there any adjustments to the agenda, Karen?
I have one.
Okay.
I want to add under select board items, under VLCT select board rules of procedure, I want to add Town of Putney emergency EMD delegation of authority.
EMD delegation of authority. And we did get the paperwork on that.
Yes, you did.
Okay. And then I wanted to add a discussion about, I don't know if everybody saw the action that Brattleboro took last night at their select board meeting, but I would like to discuss the action they chose to take and how we want to approach that as a community regarding requiring masks in local public spaces. So we can add that after the Forest for Learning, Karen, do you think, or should we add it before?
No, I think you can add it at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And the rest of Green Up Day and the other things you and I had discussed earlier, you're going to add those to your town manager's report?
Correct.
Perfect.
Yeah, I have Green Up, I have Library, and I have Landmark.
Right. So, okay. Do I hear a motion to approve minute for Are you?
Can you repeat?
Is it me that's lost, or is it them?
You're freezing up a little bit. I'll make a motion.
Okay. Am I cutting in and out?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 29th, and I believe it was May 6th. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Are you getting me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So that's
Did
been
we
passed.
have minutes from from last week's meeting as well?
Yeah, we did.
Those were separate, right?
Yeah, they're separate
Yeah.
and they're not done yet.
They're not done? Okay.
Not done. Next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? If you have public comment, feel free to send it into the chat or to request to speak, or raise your hand if I can see you. I'm just going to give that a few seconds. All right. Then we're going to move on to select board items. Putney Mutual Aid is up first, and I'm not sure who on Putney Mutual Aid wants to speak first. We have several members of this group here. So I see Jamie, I see Ruby, and I see Ellen. Am I missing anyone else? Excuse me, I just burped. Am I missing anybody? Sorry.
Hi, Jamie.
Can we, Karen, you can unmute yourselves. And
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I imagine you designated somebody to speak, so.
You hear me?
Jamie, I can't hear you.
Try it now. Oh.
Hold on. I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Kinda
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
better.
Yes.
Is it any better?
There you go.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Much. Thank
Okay,
you.
that was my headset. Sorry, I was trying to make it so no one else had to listen to all of us. So hi, what a treat to be with you all via Zoom. Hi, town government. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to see you.
Yeah, long time.
Yes.
I live in a hermitage over here. So I created the presentation. How long do I have? What's a reasonable amount of time?
If we could keep it under 5 minutes, that would be great.
Okay, if that's the case, I'll just do high level reporting and let you know that everything I'm saying is in a written report that I'll email to Laura as soon as I get off. And so I'm going to use that as an outline. So if it looks like I'm not looking at you, it's because I'm not looking at you. So holler if you need my attention. And then I would invite anybody from Putney Mutual Aid, which I see a number of you here, to please chime in. Ruby, Ellen, I see you. I didn't look at everybody, so if somebody else is there, feel free to chime in if I missed something. So the fast version is 5:39, so let's see how fast this can go. The fast version is that a group of us in the middle of March started reaching out to the town and our state representatives. Folks of us in Putney who were realizing that COVID-19 was going to be a real thing and that it might require some upping the level of support of our town government and our state systems. And so a group of us started saying, what can volunteers do? A group of us emailed our state reps and a couple folks in town government and realized that we could start kind of organizing ourselves. And so spent 2 weeks meeting daily. And I think the first conference call was organized by Mike Maricki, our state representative. And it kind of brought us this kind of ad hoc group together of folks who didn't know each other. And from there, we met daily for 2 weeks and then backed off to once a week since then. We've been going strong for 2 months now, and we've created a couple of resources, all of which are linked on the town of Putney's COVID-19 update website. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I have all the links that I'll include in my report to you. And then we've created a Facebook page. We have a Google Voice number that's a local number now for folks who don't have access to the internet. And then we have an email address. And so by the numbers, what's interesting about this work, or kind of the high level, what's interesting about this work is that immediately we put a survey out, which was a confidential needs and offerings survey. And this is modeled off of what many others are doing around the state and the nation in mutual aid groups, of which we are one of many, many. I mean, I was on a conference call with 100 people from the state of Vermont who are doing this work. So we are not unique. There is quite a network of amazing work happening during this time with volunteers. And many are integrating with their organizations. Many are from organizations. And then in small towns, folks might not even have a single organization they can network with. So it's just neighbors helping neighbors. So I think the fast version is immediately we saw a spike of folks filling out the confidential needs survey and offerings, and 75% were volunteers. We have 180 people who filled it out now. There was some very significant needs that were being articulated, and because we live in a small town, I'm not going to go into specifics, but it involves people needing mental health support, people not having access to enough food, people who might be in a situation where housing isn't secure. You name it, it's happening in our town. And so a lot of our support systems are already in place, and you all were already, helping, the state reps, the emergency management director, Tom Goddard. A lot of those things were in place and people were already doing that outreach. But what Putney Mutual Aid is doing is kind of creating a networking opportunity from town government and the emergency management director out into street by street. And so now we have about 32 neighborhood point people who are building networks street by street in Putney. We've either called people by phone, done mailing, or gone door to door with no contact, meaning, we're doing social distancing, we're not knocking on doors, we're leaving a note behind with a rock on it. We've done that kind of outreach to about 1,000 people. And so our goal is now to get to the other 800 that are existing on our voter rolls. Recognizing voter rolls are incomplete documents. We're doing our best to do it, everyone, not just folks who are on the voter rolls. So, a percentage of folks need support. A lot of people want to volunteer and help out. And we're Vermonters, so people are very, very self-reliant. And so many times we're noticing that just saying, hey, we're here, and knowing that we're offering each other support is what we can do. And so I would just defer to my colleague, Ruby McAdoo, who's been doing a ton of the work behind the scenes, managing all of the confidential data that we're keeping. And I will look at my notes to see if I'm missing anything, if she wants to add something.
That was exactly 5 minutes, Jamie. Good job.
And I'll be really brief because I think that Jamie kind of encompassed everything. We do have some core volunteers who are helping to manage the data, and we're in a good place with that. The only thing I would add is that Putney Mutual Aid also contributes to and helps to coordinate a number of projects that are, you really don't mean that much to you because they're things that are in process, but one of them I'm going to mention because it does relate to the mask situation that Laura mentioned about Brattleboro. I think tonight I'm going to be going and setting up a mask tree in town that will give people free access to masks without any contact and without asking, which we're hoping will help people to kind of adhere to that requirement. And that's one example of a project that we participate in. And we're looking for, we just look for ways that we can be helpful, connecting people. We connected someone who, through Laura as well, someone who said they had a 3D mask printer, and that they've been helping at Landmark, and that was a big deal also. So I think that Putney Mutual Aid is just getting our roots and trying to do good work is where we can. And the matching process is a huge part of that, but the projects that we're contributing to is also, that's a big part of what we do as well.
So I don't want to, I might take 2 more minutes. Do I have permission to do 2 more minutes to share some numbers with how we're linking to the existing organizations?
Sure.
Okay. I think what's interesting about this work is it's not designed to operate outside of the existing networks you all have built. It's designed to support them. And so the network is an example. 180 people have filled out the confidential needs and offerings form. We have sent, or the Putney Food Shelf has activated 7 of those people that we have sent them to help volunteer. We have sent 10 folks to the Putney Food Co-op to help with delivery of groceries. We have sent Putney Community Cares 2 volunteers for Meals on Wheels. We've offered and sent Putney Central School meals work 8 volunteers. I don't know that they're going to activate them, but they were offered and they have them. We've reached out and connected with the emergency management director, Tom Goddard, and he's been really clear with us that all mental health or emergency work is coordinated through him. And so one of the interesting things that came up on the form was that people were like, I am a Coast Guard, retired Coast Guard. I'm a mental health worker. I'm, people volunteering, all of these amazing skills in our community. And so I think we sent about 17 of those volunteers to Tom so that he had access to folks who were basically saying, hey, we're ready to go. What can we do? So we sent those to them. We've reached out and done a little work with you, Karen, around the resilient Putney. I think that's what you call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Resilient
Yes.
Putney. So we were doing some early work coordinating anybody who identified food as something that they were willing to offer, trying to figure out local producers and how to get them tied into the system that the town of Putney has on their website, of trying to really centralize the local food system access for folks who might be concerned about what's on the shelves at the grocery store and how we can be really resilient in our own community as food producers. And then people are getting grocery delivery through us. That was something that wasn't existing in an organization. And so we've activated 8 people to do a no contact grocery delivery process with neighbors who really need support getting their groceries picked up and delivered to their house. So I think there's a couple of other random things like Ruby mentioned. I will point out that we've made the news twice. And I think that's interesting because one of the critical narratives right now, there's a couple different narratives that I've seen. There's some fairly negative narratives and there's some fairly positive ones. And the thing that's really exciting about the work and the volunteerism in Putney is that we're making the news because it's such an amazing story. And so VPR featured us. I don't know if you saw the board that Ruby put up at the Putney Food Co-op, but VPR does these daily news briefings. And so the Community Joy Board was featured on VPR. And then that story of the 3D mask making made the Brattleboro Reformer, and that was a link that happened between Laura Chapman and Putney Mutual Aid folks, linking a 3D printer to somebody with the capacity to do 3D printing. And I think they're producing masks for Brattleboro and Rutland hospitals. So I think those were some really exciting developments. So anyway, I think that's the kind of the high level stuff. I will point out, Karen, you had mentioned, the town developing an email system. And I was looking through all of our email records. We have about 176 emails, about 172 phone numbers. We have a Facebook page. We've put 5 sandwich boards up around town with a local phone number in case people don't have access to the internet. We have flyers up at the post office, the G store, the co-op. We've dropped them off at other businesses, but we don't necessarily see them being posted. They have tear-offs. So if somebody's in an emergency situation, they can tear off. We highlight you all. We highlight the food shelf. So our work is to reflect back the existing infrastructure that you all have created. So I think that's what the attempt is to try to integrate us all and build systems of networking and communication.
And you're doing a very nice job.
Yeah.
I just want to say we keep hearing about what you all are dealing with and doing, and we know what's going on nationally and globally, and we're just really proud of how hard people are hustling during this time. So thank you for collaborating with all of us to make a healthy community.
Thank you, Jamie, and Ruby and Ellen and everybody else that's working on Putney Mutual Aid. I want to add that I recently read an article that was actually shared out by Putney Mutual Aid on social media, and one of the points of interest in it that really came to the top for me is somebody that has participated in many mutual aid projects throughout my adult life. I have noticed that most mutual aid projects are in response to immediate crisis, and there's a difference in the way that this is being organized. It feels like it's more preparatory. And so I appreciate that. And I think it's going to carry far into the future for us, I hope, as long as we are able to maintain the energy of people such as yourself. So are there any questions from the board or from Karen for Putney Mutual Aid?
Well, I just want to make a statement that our hazard mitigation plan is due in November. And I think with the creation of Putney Mutual Aid, I think we can utilize what you're doing in that plan as like a continuity plan, resiliency plan. So somehow we'll tie that in. I haven't looked at it yet, but as we progress through the process, I'll be getting a hold of you.
And Karen, just so you're aware that, and we've talked before, that's a project, our thinking about it is a project that we work on, and I'm the kind of lead person for that. So whenever you're ready to collaborate, or if there's a meeting you want to pull us into, just you can tap me and I will be there.
Thank you.
I have a question, Ruby. I'm assuming, given that you're handling, and I gather you're the point person on this as well, the confidential information of a number of people. How are you? And I don't need details, but just sort of an overview of your ability to keep that information secure and your confidence in that security.
So it's not just me. Jamie and I both are on a volunteer team with one other individual, Core Trowbridge, and the three of us are the only people that have access to that data. And it is as secure as Google Drive is secure. I don't know if there's any way to share that data and have a form and protect it any more than we are, which is by only giving access to those three people. Of course, when we do match someone, we share their information, but we have received permission from or expressed to people who have participated and asked them to opt out if they didn't want to give permission, to share their information to resources, organizations, and individuals who can help them. And so from that perspective, we do treat the information as confidential. We don't share it, particularly when Jamie actually does most of the calls to individuals to connect with them. If she finds information that is sensitive, it's not shared with anyone except for the people who really need to know that information. But so I don't know if that answers your question, and I don't think you want to know the boring intricacies of what the systems are that we use, but
No.
we do protect it, and it is controlled to a very small number of people. For a while, it was just Jamie and me, and that became untenable for a few different reasons. We're both, mothers who are stretched, and we also there are lots of levels of what we need to do to manage that information, and having even just the one additional person and Core is really wonderful at helping us to keep that data, ship shape.
Good, thank you. I also would just reiterate Karen's sentiment that I hope and assume you all will be able to carry this going forward. Certainly through the pandemic, but also I think it's a remarkable resource you've created, and, ways that we can support that as a town in general, even in times of, quote unquote, less need. I think that's great. So really appreciate it.
And I think I would just refer to Jamie's been working really intensively on the neighborhood point person piece. And the goal with that is really to create an infrastructure of a lot of different communication systems so that we can really get out to as many people in town in the case of an emergency. So I agree. I think that's our intention and our hope, that this would be a useful kind of structure for the future, whatever it holds.
Good.
I don't think this is the forum to discuss it, but I will say that one of the pieces it has raised is where the vulnerabilities lie in our community that the pandemic is laying bare. And many of them, us know what they are, but the challenges that we face as a community to make sure that folks are okay during this time is real. So anyway, I just appreciate our commitment to each other to do that work.
Yeah, I think, and I highlights it. Of course, many of the people that you are reaching out to individually are people that often, because of their nature, et cetera, are not likely to come forward to ask for help. So I think that's really meaningful to be able to actually get to people and say, we're here if you need us, and we're not going to bug you if you don't, but we're here, and that's great.
And in several cases, it
Agreed.
seems like that's what matters. There's a psychological element to this that I think the isolation, it just, so yeah. But then there's like, you need food part. So that's the other piece we've been really hustling around.
Yeah.
So thanks to all of you who have these great systems. The food shelf, Putney Community Cares is offering financial assistance to folks we've sent to them. And it's just amazing what's happening.
David, do you have anything?
I want to say thank you. I want to say I'm proud to be from Putney and feel like the things that you're doing are so important. And I know so many people who are very self-sufficient and yet also proud and are reluctant to ask for help or even receive it sometimes. And I think what you're doing is a great thing. Thank you for doing it. Thank you so much. I feel in so many ways less affected, I think, than most people by this because I work at home and have a successful business and a fairly large group of people around me that I help and who help me because of all my years of being here. But I'm also isolated and don't know many of the people that you know that you're dealing with. And thank you for everything that you're doing. I think it's a great system. Thank you.
Maybe the last thing I'll end on is just that to Josh's earlier point, we created generic sandwich boards, which arguably are difficult to read. So it was a learning lesson, but they are in places where people are walking by. And the sandwich boards were made generic. We were going to put COVID-19 on them, and then we made them generic so that they could be used indefinitely. And so it's like Putney Mutual Aid, neighbors helping neighbors. So it's a resource that we invested in, banners that go over sandwich boards so that those will be there if there's going to be another time that they're needed.
That's great. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us and for all the work you're doing and this update. We really appreciate it. And please keep us in the loop and reach out. I know I meet with you pretty regularly, but if you have anything that comes up, definitely reach out and let us know. So,
Thank you.
thanks
Thank you.
all. I know that Ellen had jumped on this call. Ellen, did you want to give any kind of update at all as to the food shelf's role in this?
I kind of just wanted to hear the update from Mutual Aid, but I will say that the food shelf has, as you've probably been aware of, sprung into action, and our numbers continue to grow with our curbside pickup. And we have about a quarter of our customers each week are getting a home delivery. So that's something new that we've started. And people have been so generous to us, and to David's point, people who receive also want to give, and so we're looking into ways that people can kind of be part of that whole system, so that it's not just a beneficiary; they're able to contribute as well. So we'll keep you posted if we come up with anything. But please, I know probably everyone here does this, but spread the word. We're open to everyone. No need to answer any questions except your town of residence and number in your household. So there's no barrier to coming. You don't even have to get out of your car. So
Wonderful.
thanks,
Ellen,
Laura.
can you remind me? I know there's, and maybe you remember the exact timing on this. Wednesday in Brattleboro, there is a food box giveaway again. And
Yes.
this one actually is a fresh food box giveaway, like
Yes.
2 gallons of milk, 20 pounds of
Yes.
chicken.
Yeah, 10
Am
pounds.
I getting this right?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's fresh food and some shelf stable food, and it's a partnership with the food bank and the Abbey Group, which I think is a food distributor. I don't know the time offhand. It's May 27th.
I want to say it's 10 o'clock
I
at the
have 10 o'clock
Brattleboro
in my
High
mind.
School. Yeah.
And one thing they have run out of food at other distributions like this. So that's one thing I wanted to emphasize even when Herb sent out his email to the school community about this event. We don't ask questions either, and we give away pounds and pounds of food to each person that comes. So if they run out of food at that distribution, come on Saturday from 9 to 11 to the food shelf. Because I took a picture that I can share with you separately, but we sometimes give out a full bag of produce, extra produce that we get from the food bank, a full bag of shelf-stable foods, and then extras like dog food or diapers or whatever we have. I mean, it's 3 to 4 bags full of food every week to each person. So
Fantastic. I just found the flyer, and it's Wednesday, May 27th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Brattleboro Union High School. 2 gallons of milk, 7.5 pounds of Cabot cheese, 20 pounds of pre-cooked chicken, and 25 pounds of fresh produce per box.
Yeah.
So, great. Thank you so much, Ellen.
Thank you. We appreciate all you're doing, all of you. Thank you.
Right back at you. So,
I have a question for Ellen.
Yeah.
Ellen, this is Karen. Is Soundview supporting you with paper products too?
Yes, they are. And you probably know that they have been for a long time. They've always said, "Oh, just give us a call if you need anything."
Yeah.
They dropped off, I want to say, 144 rolls of toilet paper and 50 or so rolls of paper towels last week.
Nice.
And that's been so great. And every week we give away either one roll of toilet paper to each family or a roll of paper towels.
Nice.
So they are continuing to be awesome partner for us.
Great. That's good
so
to hear.
Mhm.
Alan, this is Josh. I'm just wondering, I know I never connected back with you about masks because I had already left them at the food shelf. There are still more of those masks. Are those something you all would still be able to use more of?
We definitely can use them, but we have plenty left. I'm on the outside team. If you haven't seen what our setup looks like for the food shelf, people pull up in their cars and we have greeters who kind of preview how it's going to work. And one of the questions we ask is, do you need masks? And so we'll hand out a couple of disposable masks, or if we have reusable masks. So they're great to have. I've put one on a couple times when my reusable mask has gotten really, uncomfortable to wear, but we definitely still have a good supply left.
Okay, sounds good. Well, the rest will be at the fire station if you end up needing more.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much to all of you. And now we're going to, seeing there's no other, Ruby said she's bowing out to go to a school board meeting and hopefully put up the mask tree, but thanks us all. And we'll be watching for the public pool update. Thank you, Ruby. So, all right, so we're going to move on to an equity and inclusion update, and I believe that Lisa is here to speak to that. Lisa, if you can unmute yourself. There she is.
Hi, I'm here. I don't know, it's not, I'm trying to turn my camera on. Okay. Oh, there I am. But also, I figured you should get a face and a name. Can you see me? No?
Not yet.
All right. There
you are.
Hi.
There you are.
Hi. I'm Lisa Munoz. I haven't met some of you. I arrived in Putney end of June last year, and I live and work at the Putney School. So nice to meet you.
Same here.
Nice to meet you.
And I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion at the Putney School, which is a new position for the school as of last June. And I'm here to share, is it possible to share my screen with you all so that you can see where I'm reading from, or?
I
can't, I'm not a presenter. Is it possible?
Hang on a minute and I can maybe do that for you, Lisa.
Thank you.
If you make her a presenter, Karen, she should be able to then share her screen.
Try that.
Yep. All right.
There we go.
So the Equity and Inclusion Committee met probably for the first time after, I would say, a month or two hiatus because of COVID-19 and sort of how that rocked everybody's world. But when we got together, we started having conversations about how equity and inclusion sort of, as you've been having discussions today, expose what's always been there, and how this committee can offer suggestions about how to make sure that everybody is safe and also belongs. And so one of our thoughts was to ask the select board to consider a recommendation really about what it means. I titled the document, What It Means to Be a Good Neighbor and Safety for All, with the lens of inclusion and belonging and community. So if you allow me to read the recommendation, and this is really about the citizens and community of Putney and the visitors that are, I'm sure, on their way as restrictions are being lifted every day and people get more comfortable getting in their car and driving through this scenic little community. So here's our recommendation. Dear Putney community, one of the unspoken tenets of being a good neighbor is looking out for others. During this global pandemic, please remember that looking out for others does not mean we abandon empathy, civility, and humanity. Many in the community are scared for a host of reasons, but do not let your fear turn into unsanctioned policing of others in the community. As the weather warms and restrictions loosen, there will be more visitors to Putney. It would be prejudicial and presumptive to assume you know something about someone based on the fact they have out-of-state plates or a different race and ethnicity than your own. As the governor's office recently shared, individuals in Vermont have been told that they do not belong and to leave because out-of-state plates and the color of their skin. These bias incidents have no place in Vermont or in Putney. All people, residents, and visitors are deserving of safety and compassion. As a result of hearing about these incidents of bias, the following is an endorsed recommendation from the Equity and Inclusion Committee of Putney. And here's what we would like, I guess, publicized in some way. We know that we're in difficult times and that the tensions are high right now. In an attempt to create an environment of civility and respect, we ask that if you see someone without out-of-state plates, someone not following the state or store's policies, do not approach them. In cases where you have concerns about someone not wearing masks or using social distancing, please inform the appropriate people. In a business setting, please ask to speak to the management. If the concern is more global and involves policy, please direct your concerns to the town manager or the Putney Select Board. The aforementioned people have been trained to properly address any situation of noncompliance of state, town, or store policy and will address any relevant challenges. We recognize that the residents of Putney rightfully may expect that everyone in our town respects the guidance provided by the state of Vermont. Vermont currently has the lowest increase of COVID-19 in the nation because we have put the needs of the community above all. Echoing the words of Dr. Maya Angelou, if you know better, all of us need to do better for our community and those who visit Putney. I'm going to stop sharing. And see. Our conversation and our efforts was to support and to educate, and to really, the concern grew out of reported incidents of people taking it upon themselves to really police other people and make potentially dangerous situations for themselves and for those that they have approached. I will share that I have out-of-state plates. A colleague of mine has out-of-state plates, and they were followed onto campus, and they were asked why they were here. they were white, it wasn't about race. But it was, if that was me in a car, that's kind of terrifying to be stopped and asked, why are you here? What are you doing? And so that was sort of the express, to keep everybody's safety in mind, and really to ask community members not to police other people. It's a dangerous situation.
Mhm.
I don't know, Jamie, if you want to add anything, if I missed anything.
No, it was really powerful that our equity committee meeting raised this a week prior to the incident, and it was at Hartford.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so we had discussed creating a statement, and then this happened in Hartford, Vermont. The governor reacted swiftly, reached out to the family that had been attacked. And so it just was really powerful to see the context and the importance of this work. And I'm really grateful that we have the Equity and Inclusion Committee that gives that space for us to do that work. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
So to the select board, the Equity and Inclusion Committee's ask is that we adopt this statement as our own. And I put that out there to you.
So I will make a motion that I'm happy to adopt it as our own, but I almost feel like it might be more appropriate for us to endorse it as a statement from the Equity and Inclusion Committee, and maybe that's just wording, but I'd like to make
Thank you.
to endorse the statement from the Equity and Inclusion Committee and to post it as we are able in public places, i.e. our website, etc.
Thank you. Can I just add something? I think it will tie later into your conversation that you have about face masks in Brattleboro and where Putney comes down on it, because that will be, wherever it lands, a policing issue for people about wearing masks.
So can I make a comment?
Thank you. Well, first we have a motion, so we should probably keep the motion moving and then we can have discussion.
Did you make the motion?
I made the motion, David.
Sorry, I'll second the motion. Thank you. We're good. Second. It's been a long day.
It's been moved and seconded. And now, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to clarify my statement. I think the reason I think it's preferable to me to endorse it rather than to adopt it is that I think it's important that it's a statement from the Equity and Inclusion Committee and from us, but I prefer that it reflects the strength of that committee for us to endorse it rather than to adopt it as our own, because I think that's important. So that's the only reason.
I totally agree, Josh. In fact, when we had at the last meeting with them, I think I used the language endorse and just kind of misspoke this time around. But thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. Oh, Karen, you had a question?
I have a comment. So when we state policing, so concerns are coming to the town manager or the select board. So we have no ability to enforce. So how are we going to handle?
We have an ability to direct, and if it is something where law is being broken, then we can redirect to the sheriff or we can redirect to the survey link, or depending on the circumstance. But honestly, if it came to me, I would probably redirect it to you. If it was a policy thing, then we would discuss it as a select board. So I think that's where that comes from.
And I like what Lisa said, because it's about educating. And, I mean, we can't be out there being vigilantes. I mean.
No, that's the fear that people take it upon themselves.
Right.
That's the danger, really. And I think it's based out of fear. and
Yep.
the biases that we carry. But it's a slippery slope once you start doing that.
And the thing too is if anybody feels threatened, they should automatically be calling the sheriff's department or the state police for that matter.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Any further discussion? Jamie, I see your hand up.
One of the things that has come up for me is we live near an Airbnb, and it struck me early on that I was seeing a bunch of out-of-state plates. And so I had shared in the equity meeting that one of the challenges that I am struggling with as somebody who was born and raised out of state is some of the reactions that I'm feeling in community about seeing out-of-state plates. And for me, I've been trying to think of how to, instead of calling, I don't want to be calling police. Somebody encouraged me. I reached out to the proper channels and someone encouraged me to call the police. And I said, because it was against the governor's order at the time. And I said, I'm not going to be calling the police on my neighbors or, whoever. But I did realize that for me, it was about reflecting back to policymakers that we need better policy. And so for me also as a community member, I started thinking, well, what scares me about this? And so the thought that folks could be coming into the community with COVID and then going into the grocery store. So I've started thinking, why can't Putney Mutual Aid reach out to all the Airbnbs and ask them if folks are arriving from out of state to give them our phone number so that they can call and get grocery delivery. So I'm trying to think of where the fear is and what the solution point is and how policy can create better community outcomes and what the goal of this is, which is safety and respect for everyone in our community.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate that line of thinking. Is there any further discussion on this statement?
Just one clarification that the word policing is used in the first paragraph of that statement, not in the statement that we're endorsing. I mean, I agree with Karen. We are not the police, and so we won't be policing. But that term is used not in the statement itself, but in the introduction to it. So I think that's appropriate. So, because we don't have the ability to police, we can certainly refer to police as Laura or somebody said, but other than that, it's not our tenure.
And and in the language, it really means the sort of civilian policing of each other and not the actual authority of policing.
Right.
And it's where when people take essentially the law and so they become
Right.
Yeah.
that party. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Do we have any further discussion on this? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to endorse this statement from the Equity and Inclusion Committee on what did you call it? Being a good neighbor, or
I called it a good neighbor, safety for all, because as I was thinking of when I was drafting it, that was really like the heart of it is I think your people are trying to be good neighbors. The outcome is, it's not safety for all. It's actually dangerous to do that.
So to endorse the good neighbor, safety for all statement, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it's been moved and passed. Thank you for the work you've done. Meeting with you
Can I
has
take a
been.
photo of you all doing that?
Yes, you can take a photo.
Hands
Hands in the air. I'm documenting how proud I am right now.
It's the first Equity and Inclusion Committee action.
I'm sending this to the whole equity committee.
Lovely. That's wonderful.
Thank you,
No,
Lisa.
it's interesting, that something like a pandemic brings out issues of equity and inclusion that, of course, are there all the time, but become noticeable in ways that none of us really assume they're going to at any time, because we're used to it being suppressed for all sorts of reasons. So it's important to be acting on it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it was nice meeting those that I have not met. And hope I'll
Bye,
see you
Lisa.
in town with my
Thanks.
mask. Bye.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
I'm waiting for the pool.
So, oh, that's a ways down the agenda, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
So next up is the VLCT Select Board Rules of Procedure Approval and Adoption. And this is, we had discussed this briefly a couple of different times. These are the recommended rules of procedure from VLCT. They move a little bit away from Robert's Rules of Order, but they still keep us well within the guidelines of open meeting law. And it's just basically a structure for us to work in that we honestly are using currently. So we are technically supposed to have rules of procedure, though. So if somebody wants to make a motion, and then we could discuss.
I'll make a motion to adopt that. Well, there's one comment I want to make about them, but I'll make a motion to adopt the presented rules of procedure for the Putney Select Board.
And I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and now discussion.
This may be in there and I didn't see it. I was just wondering, is this something that would be adopted annually by any given select board, or is this sort of are we adopting this for the select boards of the future kind of thing?
So my understanding is we're actually supposed to set rules and procedure every time we change our governance. So, so it would be an annual procedure.
The reason I asked was because the specific to setting a time and a date or a time and a place for meetings, that's something that comes up for discussion every year, and I just wanted to make sure that this was more of an annual adoption thing than, because we don't want to tell future select boards when they have to meet, because that's up to them.
Right.
So that was the only concern.
Shortly after we went through our reorganization, I mean, like the day after we went through our reorganization, COVID hit us in a major way. And so we missed some of these norms, and we're just catching up now, it feels like. But I think that going forward in future years, it would probably look like this, and the paper of record, and the time and place, and the all of that would happen in the same meeting. And it just didn't pan out that way this year because we were dealing with a pandemic. But all right, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have passed a motion to adopt the VLCT Select Board Rules of Procedure approval, or sorry, just procedure. And then we have the EMD delegation of authority was slipped into our schedule here.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the current EMD to delegate authority as proposed to Chris Fellows and Evan Martin.
And I second that.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of delegating Mark Fellows and, oh, wait a minute. Yes, Mark Fellows. No, I'm mixing up names. Chris and, remind me.
Evan Martin.
Thank you. Evan, Chris and Evan, thank you, to the EMD position temporarily. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So
And now, oh, go ahead.
can I presume that Laura's going to sign this document?
Yes.
Sure.
All right. It's in your mailbox at the office, Laura.
Okay. I can
Only
probably
requires
send
a
that
single
tomorrow.
signature, I think, right, Karen?
Yes.
Okay. Next on our agenda is fire warden approval. This is something we actually already approved, Mark Fellows and Russ Ellis. We just need signatures. Is that correct, Karen?
That is correct.
Okay. So my understanding is, David, you've signed, Josh and I are the negligent parties here. We need to get in and sign.
Well,
Okay.
Is there?
the documents just came like last week in the
Okay.
mail. And then
Okay.
we had to have Mark and Russ sign them. But you guys did approve the fire wardens with the slate of appointees back in March.
Yep.
So,
All right. So we're not in trouble, Josh. So we'll get in and sign those. Karen, when do you need those by? I'll try and get in tomorrow.
so they terminate on June 30th. So
Okay.
it should, July 1st, they'll start their new term.
Okay.
So those are in your box as well, Laura.
Fantastic.
And then if we can get Josh to come in over the weekend.
Okay. Well, we all have to sign warrants too. So
Well, they designated you as a signer.
that's
I
true.
suppose.
That's right. So just I have to make sure I get in tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the East Putney Brook Road Bridge discussion.
So I put this on the agenda only to bring it back onto the table. As you all know, the bridge has been shut off with the Jersey barriers because it's unsafe for pedestrians, for one thing. And we didn't want any vehicle traffic going over it, not knowing, the integrity of the bridge. So Bryce Hodgson had approached me over the phone and said, hey, what's going on with the bridge? Is it ever going to open again? And I'm like, well, I really don't know, Bryce, when that would happen. And he says he offered to pull the materials together for the decking and volunteers to redo the bridge. And I'm like, all right, see, if you can do that, let me know. So he has secured black locusts for the decking. He has secured volunteers to take the old decking up and put the new decking down. And he's also has a friend who is a state of Vermont project engineer, and she is actually project engineer on the Route 5 bridge right by the G store. So she went with Bryce and looked underneath, and she asked Bryce if there's any structural reports on that bridge. So I'm going to touch base with Renee, and because it's over a stream, there might be certain permitting that we would have to get, but I would like to talk to Brian Harlow first and foremost, because it is a trail. We don't have to maintain the bridge, but if we have somebody willing to replace it and they have the material already, is that something the select board would be interested in?
So Karen and I had this discussion earlier, and I find it interesting. My one concern is that the discussion on the other end of that trail was that Westminster wants to close it. And so if we approve the rebuilding of this bridge, even at no cost to the town, and it's for vehicular use, where are cars going to go? How are they going to turn around? Those are questions that came to mind for me.
So can I just also add that Bryce did mention that if the town could purchase the hardware, to put the decking down, and I don't know what else it would require. But in any event, if it doesn't open up to motorized vehicles, like passenger trucks and Jeeps and that kind of stuff, that deck still needs to be, something has to happen because people are walking on it. And
Right.
There's a safety issue. Yeah.
That's the liability that I'm worried about. And dirt bikes are going around the Jersey barrier now, and four-wheelers are going through the Brook to get to the other side. So they're finding means and ways to get around the Jersey barriers. And it appears, and I have not been out there, but it appears somebody has hit the barrier. They must not have known it was there because there's broken glass and the sign is knocked over. So somebody was out there and had a small accident, but it is a liability to the town, so we have to make a decision. And Laura, you're right, because Westminster does not want to open their end because all that traffic is going into their town forest, and they're trying to alleviate that. But we definitely need to make a decision about this bridge.
How soon do you need a decision from us?
Well, it's been a while now, but we can bring it back onto the table after I talk to Renee and after I talk to Brian Harlow, because I think it's important that he's involved as the road foreman.
Yeah. I'm curious if we can do a compromise and not allow like cars, Jeeps, etc., but allow four-wheelers, dirt bikes, whatever. Is that possible?
It might be.
I think it would be hard to enforce that. If you open the bridge up for a four-wheeler and someone wants to go through with their Jeep and they see a freshly decked bridge, they're going to drive on it.
Yeah.
And
well, I wonder if you narrow it so that a car.
Maybe, and they could just pull it sideways with their Jeep and drive on it. But, I guess, Mike, I have a couple concerns that come up. Is that, are we going to make sure that the supports are good enough? I know that it was looked at by a project engineer, but it would really be nice if someone from town looked at it and made sure that we're not decking on something that is wasting their time and energy of whoever's doing it. And if we're going to do it and do it right, how are we going to restrict car usage? And if we're not going to be able to restrict car usage, what does that mean in our relationship with Westminster? And so if we're going about replacing this bridge, should we think about the future too and the development of the land beyond the bridge? There were people that were interested in having us rebuild this bridge so that they could use the land, which might add houses and people to the tax roll. And so maybe we should think about it in a bigger picture.
Right.
That's good points, David.
Be a culvert, maybe it ought to be finished and done right, even though we can't afford to do anything right now. So I think it's a great idea. It's wonderful that someone's volunteering the materials and the time, but I think we need to look at all those things.
Yeah. Excellent points, David.
I think that as far as Westminster is concerned, I don't remember exactly how long a trail this creates for us on our side. My recollection is maybe a half mile to a mile, but I might be wrong. But not to disrespect Westminster at all, but as David's alluding to, if it does create access to an area of Putney that people want access to, then it's incumbent upon Westminster to close it off at the point they want it closed off. Right. That not that this shouldn't be part of the discussion, but it's not up to us to limit traffic on our trails in order to accommodate Westminster's desires. And again, that nothing against Westminster with that. It's just if it gives people access they want on the Putney side, that's good. I think that we would have to be also sort of to David's point, if it's going to be brought up and improved or repaired, and we are going to endorse that in any way, basically by allowing it, that potentially opens it up as a liability for us. So we would need to make sure that it was done to the standard that the state would require. And Brian certainly would be aware of what that would be. And I'm assuming, Renee, you're talking about as a state person?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we just need to know that first, what the standard, I mean, I agree, it would be great if this was done, because I think people are using it anyway, and we should do it if they're using it anyway.
Right.
Or if somebody's doing it at no charge, that's great. And I'm certainly in support of supplying hardware, et cetera, but that also probably implies that it needs railings, it needs,
Yes.
there will be more to it. So I think we would need to know what that standard is and the actual expenses to the town involved, even with volunteers. If we were then, if volunteers, for example, just put a deck on it and then we were responsible for railing, what does that imply, et cetera? So
Yeah.
All well-made points, and I think that part of my concern around Westminster is that I thought that we had this conversation with them as we were going through this the last go around, and so I just want to make sure that we haven't indicated to them in any way that, like, hey, we're going to close this off on our end too, and now we're suddenly shifting without communicating with them.
Right. So I don't mind talking with Westminster, but I first want more information on the bridge, because if we're not able to even repair it because of the structures underneath, the rails, because somebody said they were, it's like steel beams from a flatbed truck. So I'm thinking maybe this bridge only becomes a walkway, So, because we don't want to put a new deck on something that's going to fail anyways, because it's still a liability to the town.
exactly, yeah.
My thought is,
All
if it's only going to become a walkway, we really ought to think about what we want to do with that land in the future before we go and build a walkway in a spot where we might actually want to put a bridge someday for cars. So if we build it down and then have to tear it out and build it up again, maybe that's not the thing to do.
Right.
So just a thought. Maybe the thing to do is to take this bridge down and put in a little walkway bridge somewhere else. Right next to it, we still have the site or something else. And that might be.
Yeah. So I think we need to really research this further and look at all the factors and the variables. Because I know the land on that trail, David, there's access from 2 other roads on the other side. So those people already have access. So I wasn't concerned with shutting the bridge off right now. But in the future, we definitely got to think of something and have some sort of solution.
Well, the other thing also to that point is that if maintaining any bridge of any size gives us a grandfather clause in respect to future development, we would want to be cautious not to lose that, because getting permitting to build new bridges is not that easy. So, if it would buy us, whatever, a decade or 2 of time to improve it, well, we see what happens with that land. That might not be a bad idea. But we did also have this discussion and all agree that we didn't really need this access. So, I think the place to start is to explore, if we're going to do something, what has to be done, and then we revisit the conversation. Seems logical.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So moving on, audit proposal results, recommendation and approval of auditor.
So
you've got some quotes.
Yep. And then I sent you the spreadsheet with all the costs.
Yeah. Thank
Did
you. That's
everyone
helpful.
see that?
I'm only aware of having received one proposal, and I didn't see a spreadsheet, so I'm not familiar with this yet.
Okay, so
I got all the different proposals, but not a spreadsheet. I don't know, maybe I didn't open it right, but I saw the different companies and what their bids were.
so the spreadsheet went out this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
It went out later than the original. We had 1, 2, 3.
Is the
4.
spreadsheet the one that lists all the different municipalities that each firm?
Can you see that?
I did get that. I'm sorry, I got that. Thank you.
Hang on a minute. I wonder if I can share my screen.
Thank you,
You
Laura.
should be able to. Uh-huh.
Hold on.
I'm opening it now. Anyway, Karen.
Okay. Let me see if I can do this. I have to remember where it was.
It's the title is Auditor's List.
Let me see if I can. Do you guys,
Karen?
do you see this?
I see your screen, but holy smokes, Karen.
Karen.
There we
There
go.
it
Yep.
What? Is it too big?
Make it twice as big. I can't read it.
Hang on a minute. I think I just lost it. I think
Seeing your
I
home
just turned
screen.
lists up. Hold on. Something's going on.
Oh,
right.
It was back for a second.
Do you see it?
There it is.
There it is. Yep.
Do you see it okay?
I'm not seeing it, but I have it on paper, so
All right.
I'm not sure what's going on my end.
All right. So there were 7, I think I just said, letters that went out. And then we had 2 that responded they could not send a proposal because they were too busy. But we did get 4 in. So of the 4, R.H.R. Smith and Company, Batchlanders Associates, Mudgett, Graham and Graham gave us cost proposals. And as you can see here, I mean, they're pretty much apples to apples, except for the cost. And I want you to, if you notice the hours.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah. Now, R.H.R. Smith and Company are out of Buxton, Maine. I did reach out to Chester, Vermont, Rockingham, and Vernon
Nice.
to ask them, you know, how the company is. I had a lot of questions just to get a consensus to see, you know, if they're happy with them and, you know, how long they've been working with the firm. But I have not got a response yet. So another point, John Mudgett, who's been with us, with the town of Putney since 2004, and he does a really good job. And with our grants, we're supposed to go out to bid for auditing services every 3 years. So this is why I put this out there. And to see what the costs are and how competitive, you know, are we with Mudgett compared to someone else.
And remind me, Karen, wasn't he talking about retiring?
Yes,
Yeah.
but but his firm will continue. He himself would, at least mostly. I mean, I've had this conversation with him, so he would mostly retire, but his firm would still have the capacity and desire to do our work, and also is familiar with our situation and our numbers, et cetera. I have also, just on a sort of separate personal note, I have worked with John's firm in a different capacity on a different board, and the other folks in his firm are very capable as well. And not to say that's the way we should go necessarily, but just a comment. My personal feeling would be that it's really important we hear back from those other towns about the folks in Maine before we.
I agree with you.
You know, I mean, it's not a huge price difference. It seems to me it's a big enough price difference, so it's worth considering if everybody says, wow, these guys are great. But if everybody says, yeah, they've been fine, but, there's this and that, then it's probably not worth making that change.
And I agree with you, Josh, on that. I want to wait for responses to come back and then make a recommendation.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, all right, do we need to have any further discussion about this tonight, or can we move on from here?
Dave?
David's got a question.
Oh, go for it, David.
Like my comment, I'm always wanting to, do the best, possible.
I can't, David's breaking up for me. I don't know whether he is for you guys.
Yeah, he's breaking up for me too.
On us. David? Oh, we're going to lose David.
There, that's better.
Oh, he looks like he might be back. Oh, no. Oh, David. Can you type your question in the chat? Can you hear us? I just want to give him a minute.
Yep.
Maybe you could call Karen on her cell phone, or we can see you, we can hear you. Oh, maybe.
He's coming back, but.
You're very pixelated.
Yeah, I think he's frozen now.
Oh, here we go. I see the phone out. Oh my goodness.
David?
He's still muted, his camera, his microphone. Oh, there he is. David, can you?
Yeah, now you're back.
I think you're back.
You had
I
a
don't know
spell.
what happened.
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back.
All right, I'll make this really quick. I think trust is hugely important, especially in this and when it comes to the finances. And if we know you have a really good working relationship with someone that knows our situation, I think that's valuable. And I don't think it's that much money difference. It would be good to know, how other people feel about them. But when I have, and I know this is not an accurate metaphor, but when I have a supplier or a vendor that I know is going to do me right, even if they cost a little bit more, the ease of it is worth something. And you've worked with them before, Karen, so that might be worth something to you too. I think.
Right.
I'd like to know what you think about this.
Well, I've talked to John, and I know he's, looking at retirement, and he did state, that he would hand over our file to somebody in his office and, get them up to speed. So I trust him on that. But I think going out competitively and just shopping around to see, what's out there is a good thing. And, sometimes it's not bad either to, make a change,
Yeah.
because there might be something, they have a different style of doing audits, or, they might make recommendations, because we're new to them, so sometimes you get complacent, after a long period of time, and it's like anything that we do, so, but I'm going to wait and see what the other 3 towns have to say. And then we can make a decision.
I would just say that this appears to me to have been quite a valuable exercise just to see that everybody, really there's not a lot of variety in the numbers. So,
Right.
Everybody's very much in the same ballpark. So, so that means that's an appropriate ballpark seemingly.
Right.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yep. And if
All
I
right.
have to go by the hours, John's got 120 hours, and he's also got single audit report down, which the
Yeah.
other ones don't. And I have to question that too, especially with R.H.R. Smith, because if we have more than $750,000 in grant money, we have to have a single audit. So, and that's more money. So, but John's listed that here.
Okay, so we're going to come back to this
Yes,
when
we are.
when you have more information from other towns.
Well, how much of a hurry are we in, Karen?
How much what?
Of a hurry if we make that decision a week or 2 weeks from now, that's fine, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
No, we're okay.
All right, moving on to the Forest for Learning status. And I don't know, Josh and David, we got another email on this about an hour before we went into meeting.
Did you guys see that?
I saw it came in, but I didn't get a chance to read it.
I'm in the same boat.
So I actually think that for this conversation, it's important that we're all able to be on the same page with this. It's not a very long email. Are you able to go back in and give it a quick read?
Do you want me to share it?
Yeah, could you share it? That'd be awesome.
Because at this point, it's public information.
I can read it out loud too. It's not that long. So I don't know how you uptake information though. So,
I'm looking right at it now, Laura, so I'm all set.
Okay.
And
okay,
I can
great.
read whatever.
Oh, what did I do? Oh, let me see. I don't know if I can pull it up for you, David.
All right, I'm getting there.
All right.
Just give you guys a few minutes to review this, and then we can jump back in.
Regarding any conveyance. So the veto power that he's referring to would be conveyance of an easement, I'm assuming. Is that correct, Laura? Do you know? I can't remember. I might be able to answer my own question, but hang on.
Yes, that we wouldn't have veto power for conveyance of an easement.
Right.
Which, I mean, frankly, I don't feel the need for that. I just feel the need to secure that it's going to come back to us should anything happen. Should anything unplanned happen, I want to know that it's going to come back to the town of Putney, not go to the state, not go to the county, not go to
IRS.
wherever. Yes.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I mean, I think that my assumption based on Lionel's capabilities and experience is that he's going to seek and get a really appropriate easement for it.
Agreed.
You know, if that appeared not to be the case, I think the publicity from that would probably be something that would end up, for all practical purposes, vetoing that anyway. So I don't think that's a power we need to have, in my opinion. Yeah. I think that's sort of overreach, not necessarily, but could be.
Well, and I just want to state that in these emails that have gone back and forth, it seems that there has been a misunderstanding as to our intentions here. This is not a trust issue.
Right.
on our behalf. We don't have concerns about how the Forest for Learning Board is going to take action. We're worried about the
Yeah.
what ifs,
Right.
when things don't go the way we plan them to. And
Yeah.
and so that's really all this is about, is ensuring that that forest stays in the hands of the people of Putney,
Right.
or for the purpose of the people of Putney, not necessarily the hands of, but
Yeah. No, I agree, and I had this conversation with Karen after our last meeting, that I think part of the confusion or frustration, perhaps, on the part of the Forest for Learning Board, and particularly Lionel, was perhaps related to the language that Bob Fisher used in conveying the message from Larry, which was basically, it implied that our intentions to convey the land had changed. And I think we tried to make that clear in our statements last time, but I would just like to reiterate, we have all along had the intention, and know that we also have, based on the agreement we had with the select board who drafted the initial suggestion, we're committed to doing this. It's nothing about our intentions or our desires as far as having the Forest for Learning there. It's that long-term assurance if things do not go as intended.
Right.
So,
yeah.
and the way it was presented in a statement to them, and I don't know whether that was something Larry said that Bob misinterpreted, or that, I'm not sure how that happened, but I don't think our intentions have ever changed. We just needed the sort of assurance aspect of it.
Right. So
I personally feel like these first two paragraphs really cover that. That in the event the Forest for Learning Incorporated fails to deliver on its mission, yada yada, it will revert to the town of Putney, and then within the if there is a disillusionment, then it returns to the town of Putney, because that was where I found some of my biggest concern was the language around it going to a government entity, not necessarily us specifically. I don't know if the rest of the select board agrees with me, but if we can all support this, we may be close to a resolution.
Yeah, yes, I would agree, and I'm supportive of. I think we're very much headed in the right direction. I think that what we don't have, basically, Larry forwarded this to Karen, and Karen forwarded to us, but I don't see a clear statement on Larry's part that this is satisfactory from him. So I think that for me, that would mean we shouldn't try and take an action on this tonight, which I don't think you're suggesting anyway. But I think we should, just confirm with Larry that this satisfies his concerns. And if so, I certainly could get on board supporting it.
Yeah.
My question was that Larry was really, it seemed quite clear and adamant about it needed to be attached to the deed. And I'm not a lawyer, and these aren't. And so I'm wondering about that, and I wanted to hear from him too. I was hoping there was a letter from him in here. But
although he did also say that it didn't necessarily need to be in the deed, as long as I can't remember the language he used. Karen is raising her hand and maybe saying, but essentially,
as long as it runs with the land.
Exactly. So as long as that's the case, effectively, I think it does the same thing.
Yeah.
Karen.
Okay, so I just want to point out to the select board that I do agree, because I was not clear. I think Larry's 2 points in the very first email on May 18th at 5:02 p.m. That Laura just brought up, and David also mentioning that, Larry wanted those in the deed. And yes, I agree with all that. Now, Bob Fisher's letter to Larry mentions a separate document that he refers to as the agreement. And I have to say that if Lionel worked with Bob Fisher, on all of these points in this proposal. It was very thought out. He put more work into this, and it actually made me feel better and more comfortable. So I believe that with Larry's comments and Larry's second email, if we get the right of reversion language in the deed, but also have them draft up this agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that proposal, it gives Forest for Learning 5 years to obtain the easements. And if they don't, then the land will revert back to the town anyways. Okay, so I think we have to understand that it is going to take a little time. It took over 2 years to, pull this nonprofit together. And it sounds like that they have to go through certain steps in order to secure funding and to sell, the easement. So I think we can give them that, but I also feel that this language needs to be in an agreement, and the select board need to be comfortable with that. And it also refers to having a select board negotiate with Forest for Learning, for conservation easements. And I think that's critical.
Yeah, I would tend to disagree with that.
But they're offering it, they're offering it.
I think they're offering us an opportunity to sit on that board, for one of us to be a representative on that board. I think that Lionel's been pretty clear that he doesn't want other people to be a part of the process, that it's a delicate process to go after conservation easements. Maybe I'm incorrect, but what I saw was where was that?
Forest for Learning will welcome a Putney Select Board liaison to its board so that there is openness and transparency in how the organization proceeds with the management of the property pending the sale of the development rights.
And I think, personally, I think that's a great thing for us to secure. I don't know that any one of us should feel obligated to do that at this point, but there may be future board members that would want to be a part of that and to sit on that board. So it would be nice to have the security of, we can have a place at the table if we want it.
I don't hear that offering a position on that board. I hear it offering a position as a liaison.
A liaison, yes.
Which I don't think the select board needs a position on that board. If there were any select board member who were interested and wanted to be a part of it and was able to contribute, I would assume Forest for Learning would welcome that anyway. So I don't think there needs to be. I don't think that needs to be sort of a guaranteed position. But I can understand Lionel's point of not wanting the select board to be part of the negotiation of an easement, because easements are complicated and they're time consuming and so on and so forth.
Right.
Honestly, it's not really our purview. I mean, we don't, I think that we should be informed. We should trust, because, because that's the nature of the beast. But I think that if we are signing this deed over to these folks, putting trust in them to do what they're intending to do, then we're saying, and as long as we have that assurance that if it doesn't go the way they think, then it comes back to us, I think that's fine. And they're gonna do the right thing. And if for some reason it doesn't work out, then we get it back, then that's what it is. But I don't feel like I don't think we need to micromanage that in any way. And I think that's what Lionel's concerned about, is that, if it becomes a select board issue as well, suddenly it becomes, a constant source of discussion, et cetera, that they have to manage, and that's pretty cumbersome. So I'm fine with
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We could
I-
slow
I
the whole
would-
process down by, I mean, we already have.
Yeah.
But,
No,
Um,
I would defer to Larry's opinion on the appropriateness of the proposed inclusions, et cetera, that Bob is proposing, and I think we see what Larry has to say about it and then go from there.
Well, in Larry's email on May 18th at 5:02, he did make a statement, your suggestion, meaning Bob's, of an agreement which would survive the deed and be recorded in the land records is a good suggestion.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
So what would the select board like to do at this point? So it sounds like everybody's agrees that moving forward, and I mean, from what I've read, I feel comfortable.
So I think at this point we need to have Larry give feedback. If Larry is comfortable with what Bob has proposed here, then I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that we could move forward with this process with Larry and Bob making an agreement on that, making the additional updates that we would need, and then it could come back before us. And as long as Larry and Bob have come to a full agreement on this language, I'm comfortable with this. It sounds like the rest of the select board is comfortable with this. We just need to hear from Larry that this is good enough for him. And if not, why? Like what would be
What's missing?
where yes, exactly. So and then if that can happen I mean, we're already looking at 3 weeks behind, almost 4 weeks behind where they expected to be at. I would love to push this. If Larry says tomorrow, this is great, I would love for us to try and reconvene very quickly just to make this happen.
Yeah.
Or to say now, well, no, because we agreed on a different document, and this would be an additional document. So we would have to meet again. We would have to call a quick emergency meeting to just all come together and agree on it, and then we could sign it and be done with it.
Or, I mean, if we're intending to meet next week anyway, I'm not sure.
We're not.
We're not. Okay. So
No,
yeah,
we were gonna.
I think that
2 weeks.
in order to be assured that this is the case, and that Larry agrees, et cetera, before we vote on something, my feeling would be we need final documents presented from Larry and or Bob that they both agree to and that we can essentially endorse and agree to. So I think we have to have the documentation, and that may be the part that slows it down a little bit. But as soon as Larry has a document in front of him that he can get on board with, I'm comfortable getting on board with that. So
Agreed. And from the language that I'm seeing in these emails, it looks like they're really close. The two of them agree that they're really close.
Yes.
So I would love to see this resolved before our next meeting. I know that Forest for Learning would love to see this resolved before our next meeting, but we will.
So it's not going to happen this week because Larry was prepping for a Supreme
That's right.
Court case. So
Priorities, Karen. Come on, push the guy a little bit.
hey, I got all of this from him this week, so it's all good.
That's good. No, I think we're definitely headed in the right direction.
We're moving in the right direction, and a lot came out of this, so everyone's done a good job. So I'll touch base with Larry, and Monday's a holiday too, so that's going to be another day delayed. So we're going to have patient, okay?
Yeah. I guess my point to the board is just that if we get this, I would love for us to be able to call a quick meeting and resolve it for these folks. So, all right. So we're moving on. We added the conversation around masks to the agenda. And I don't know, David and Josh, have you had a chance to see what the town of Brattleboro chose to do regarding?
No.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of that. Last night, the town of Brattleboro chose to basically require that face coverings are required in all public premises. And so it reads that starting May 20th, 2020, all establishments located in the town of Brattleboro that invite the public into their premises for the purpose of receiving services, purchasing products, or otherwise transacting business shall require both staff and customers or visitors to wear cloth face coverings or face shields over their nose and mouth while inside the establishment. The exceptions are cloth face coverings should not be placed on a young child under the age of 5, anyone who has trouble breathing, or anyone who is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to remove the mask without assistance. And they have posting requirements. This is an ordinance that the effective period is that it shall remain in order until the Brattleboro Select chooses to amend, rescind, or suspend this order, or until the governor declares an end to the COVID-19 state of emergency in Vermont, whichever occurs first. So the governor has, in his wisdom, decided not to make a decision on this and to kick it down to the towns and put us in this position. And I reached out to our business owners today, as many of them as I could speak to, and got most of the responses that I got from our business owners were that they would appreciate us passing something like this because they feel like they are in a really hard position right now. Some of the feedback I got was, we're afraid that if you do something like this, we'll lose business. And so they would rather us make it a recommendation than a requirement. I will say that was the first business I spoke with that was more like, hey, recommendation, not requirement. 3 of the businesses I spoke with after that asked very clearly that we make it a requirement. So I'm just curious as to how the select board feels about it, and I wanted to bring it up because it feels important, and in light of all the discussions that we've been having, like something we should really be thinking about.
I'm happy to comment, but David, you want to comment first or not?
I'm still chewing on it.
I mean, you know, I think that as we always discuss in situations like this, we have no ability to enforce. So for all practical purposes, it's really just a recommendation anyway. I think actually of somebody in a business like David's, where if we were to say all businesses in town are required to do this, David runs a business, and we shouldn't bias our decision based on David's business, obviously, but the nature of his business is that, he's got a big open door, there's airflow, so on and so forth. So a requirement would seem to me to feel a little bit overly stringent as far as that's concerned. In an enclosed space where somebody's coming in, I think it should be. I guess my feeling would be, if there's any way we can word it so that it's required based on the desire of the business owner, that might be the best way to do it. But I don't know whether that's something we can do and or whether that's helpful in a way that is at all meaningful. I guess that depends a little bit on whether it's a business owner or their clients who are resistant to do this and what the feelings about that are. I mean, obviously somebody who's going to a business can either choose to, they can choose to go to the business or not, but but the business owner can't choose who they allow into their store or not. So we want to give the strength to the business owner to say, you have to wear a mask if you come into my business. But I don't think we necessarily want to say that that applies to all businesses in town. And I'm not sure how we do that. So I guess.
So my thought was that we switch the wording. Instead of saying required, we request. So I think that, at first I'd been talking about with Karen earlier this morning, we recommend it, and recommend it doesn't feel, request feels like it's a little bit stronger language than recommend. We're actually asking you to do this as a town, and whether or not businesses or individuals choose to uphold that becomes their choice.
So I guess, yeah, I agree. I agree that sounds like a good way to do it. I guess I might, if possible, strengthen it a little bit more by saying we request that businesses require masks, both of their employees and of their clientele.
They're already required by the state for the employees.
It is in all,
Yes.
in all settings, or I mean, I know it is in retail.
all settings where you're serving the public. Yeah, even nonprofits. In all settings where you're coming into contact with the public are required to wear face masks.
So what I'm trying to think of, Laura, is there a way that we can leave it up to the discretion of a business owner as to whether they require it of their clients or not? I mean, if we can present it as a request from us and allow businesses to have the extra teeth of saying, yes, I'm allowed to tell you that you have to have a mask if you want to come in here, I think that would be ideal.
So maybe
I think we should allow them to do that if they choose. I mean, I think it should be any business owner's choice not to not have masks at all. But if they don't want somebody coming into their store without a mask on, we should allow them to be able to make that statement if we can.
Yeah. I think that some of them feel very comfortable in that, as we've seen the Putney Co-op has already done this. They've implemented it, masks and gloves, and they're providing them. But I think that what I've heard from a couple of our business owners is that it's hard enough at this point to interact with folks that are choosing not to do this, and then to not have something behind them saying that this is, and so that's what they're looking to us for. And so I think for us to, I mean, maybe we request and recommend, and you can put on your signage that the town of Putney requests and recommends that.
Well, except again, if we said the Putney Select Board requests that all customers wear masks, and we leave it to the discretion of a business owner as to whether they want to actually require it, then that gives those business owners the ability to really say that. And maybe that's too, I don't know whether we can word it in a way that makes that makes it viable, but I very much think we should allow business owners to make that choice if they want to.
Right.
That it's not just a request from us, that they have the legal right to require it if they so choose.
Is that true now? Can't they do that already, even if we don't make it? So, and it's still all, like Tom said a long time ago, it's the honor system, basically. This is all, basically.
Right.
So, is our statement helpful in any way because there's no enforcement?
Yeah, because it's a statement of, we hold positions of power, David, and in those positions of power, we're able to influence in a different way, and they're able to also point and say, it's not me, it's them,
Exactly.
And I think that's important to empower them in that way, that they can say this isn't my rules, because they're trying to do business during a really hard period of time, as you understand. And to be able to kind of scapegoat us, I feel pretty strongly about that they are able to say the town of Putney is pushing this on me.
Right.
Whatever their personal feelings are, I think it matters for
But
them. At least that's what I'm hearing.
but I do think it's also important to allow them, if they want to take that. I think the request is exactly what you're referring to, Laura, of, hey, the town requested this. But I do think it's important also that we allow them to make a decision to go further if they choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, frankly, if it wasn't for one business saying to me, I don't know that I want you to go as far as requiring it, I would probably be asking a very different thing right now. I would probably be saying we should be requiring this of all businesses. But because one business said to me, I'm really not sure that I'm nervous about what this will look like for us, I feel less comfortable with that. I don't want to do anything that's going to negatively impact any business in this town at this point. And I recognize too that though I feel pretty solid about the science behind masks, it isn't necessarily as, and I'm going to try and be very careful about how I say this. The WHO has not come out and fully endorsed this yet. The CDC has. So there's conflicting science at this point. And there are also some people that really struggle with the idea of wearing a mask for many different reasons, whether they have breathing problems or they have, sensory issues, or so. I would like to leave it up to the discretion of the owner and give them the support of the select board
Great.
in that choice.
So are we trying to take action? I mean, do you want me to try and verbalize a motion, or are we discussing this and trying to come up with an ordinance that we would adopt soon?
I think it would be great if we could come up with something tonight, just because we're not going to meet again for 2 weeks, and this is rolling fast now.
Yeah.
We know that we have our seasonal folks coming back into town. From what I heard from the few people that I spoke to today, I spoke to 5 different business owners total today. From what I've heard from them, they are definitely seeing that, and they're seeing a change in masking, and it's making them a little nervous.
Yeah.
So I would love to be able to do something about this tonight.
Yeah.
And whether we choose to adopt the Brattleboro Selectboard's language, switching it out from required to recommended, I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Karen's raising her hand.
I can't. You're all frozen on me, so definitely shoot me a message if
Can you hear Karen?
I can hear y'all. I just can't.
Okay.
You're all
Karen,
froze.
question.
So can I just make a comment? Josh, you mentioned ordinance. So an ordinance has to be heard. You have to have a public hearing.
Warned, etc. Yes, right.
Yes. So
That's why.
you're not referring to an ordinance though, right? Is this a temporary situation, Laura?
Yeah, so the way the town of Brattleboro did it, and they did it without, and they caught a little bit of flack for it last night, but they said they'd own it because this is emergency circumstance. They did it as a resolution.
Okay.
It does. So I misspoke when I said ordinance. It is a resolution.
Okay.
So I will make. I don't have the Brattleboro one in front of me, so I can't base language. But I will make a motion to adopt a resolution to request that all clientele visiting businesses in Putney wear masks, and allowing business owners to require clientele who are attending their business to wear masks.
Can we encourage businesses to do that?
Encourage
Yeah.
them to require it.
Encourage
That's
them
fine.
to require it. Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
David's not sure about that one.
I think it's the nature of my business is so different than most retail or service business that there's always room for me to say, could you just make sure you stay 6 feet away?
Right.
And I frankly talk so much all day on the phone and to so many people. It's a steady stream, and it's almost impossible for me to do that with a mask on. And I have a serious hearing impairment, and it's really hard for me to hear people talking when they're wearing a mask. So seeing it from my perspective, it seems restrictive, but I know it's honor system, and I know there's no enforcement. I know my clientele is smaller and really well known to me, and they leave their cars and they leave. So I don't deal with them for any period of time, and they're not inside my building. So there's lots of needs that retail people have, and concerns that I don't have. So I think it's important that we recommend it, and I think it's important that they get to require it. But I don't know if we need to go any further than that.
Okay. So that's Josh's motion. Pretty much said exactly what you're saying. Are you seconding Josh's motion?
I'm seconding that motion. Yep.
Okay.
And about endorsing it. So I thought you were heading towards changing the motion,
Well, no, I did ask that we endorse it so that we encourage it. Not saying that we require it, but that we encourage it.
Okay.
Encourage wearing of masks or encourage businesses to require masks?
Encourage businesses to require masks.
I think that's fair. I mean, we're not, I mean, we're not telling them they have to, but encourage. I'm okay with that. David, you okay?
I think encourage people to be safe in any way they can be safe and try to keep this spreading.
I will accept as a friendly amendment the inclusion of the word encourage businesses to require masks.
Okay, and I'll second that.
So if you could read that back, well, yeah, I don't know, however you want to run it, but if you can read it back in full so that we know exactly what the language is, that would be great.
Okay, so I did not. Karen, did you catch all of this?
I did not.
Okay.
I can repeat it if you want.
Please repeat it, and I'm going to catch it now.
Okay, so I will make a motion to adopt a resolution that requests that all clientele visiting businesses in Putney wear masks, and that would allow business owners or would encourage business owners to request their clientele to wear masks.
I think that covers it.
We can always amend it later if we find that something's wrong with it. Laura just disappeared.
Uh-oh. Laura? Laura? Hopefully she comes back in.
She put in a landline to try to improve the connection, didn't she? That she said.
I think they were working on it.
They hadn't done it yet. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's also, I mean, I think it's great that Laura reached out to, oh, Laura's back in.
Yeah, she's
Yes, that was
weird.
that was really weird. Josh got stuck on mask and it just kept repeating and repeating and repeating.
Weird.
I can't see it.
Oh, hold on. Here we go. Now I have to be on my phone because my computer froze with Josh just repeating over and over and over.
Ask.
It was pretty bad, Josh.
A little bit. What was that? What was that show? The Talking Head. Anyway, never mind. Max Headroom.
Oh yeah. That's what it was like. That's exactly what it was like.
Okay.
So we're requesting that all clientele that visit Putney establishments.
Maybe Karen, did you get it down, Karen?
I got most of it. So, adopt a resolution that requests clientele in Putney
To visit Putney.
And that would encourage businesses to request their clientele to wear masks.
To require. So we're requesting, but we're allowing businesses to require.
Okay.
With the exclusions that Brattleboro put forth. So the exclusions were, hold on one second.
Yeah.
That
Fine.
Children under 5, where is it?
Yeah, people with difficulty breathing, unconscious, so on and so forth. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The exceptions are cloth face coverings should not be placed on young children. And it could be face coverings or face shields. So all clientele to wear face coverings or face shields.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to read this back just to make sure we have it. So
David, hang on. I showed David as paused. David, are you there? Yeah, I think he might have bio broken.
Oh no.
I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you. Okay. All right. So this is what I have. The town of Putney requests that all clientele that visit Putney establishments wear masks or face shields and encourages all clientele or wait a minute.
Businesses.
Encourages businesses.
And encourages all businesses to require clientele to wear face coverings or face shields. Exceptions, cloth face coverings should not be placed on young children under age 5, anyone who has trouble breathing, or anyone who is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to remove the mask without assistance. And then they have a posting requirement. I don't feel like we need to do that. I think that we can leave posting up to the businesses.
Yes.
Yes, I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of would go without saying, but I don't know whether in those exclusions there all should also that it should also say, and at the discretion of the business owner by request of a client. Sort of, I mean, if somebody comes in and says, I'm phobic about masks or something like that.
Right.
So, but that maybe that doesn't need to be there. That might be overkill.
I feel like I'm just trying to, now I'm using one device, which I feel like that's kind of covered in this with the.
I think it's implied, so it's probably fine.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who has trouble breathing could be somebody that has sensory issues or that has
Yeah.
PTSD or asthma or no. Okay. All right. So that's been moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion on it? David, are you still with us?
I am with you, and no, I have no more discussion for me.
Okay. All right. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, then it has been passed to create a resolution that requests all clientele to visit Putney establishments wear masks or face shields and encourages all businesses to require their clientele to wear face coverings or face shields with exclusions as laid out.
I guess now we've already voted, but it probably should say encourages and allows.
And allows. So friendly amendment to that?
Yeah.
Or do we? Okay. Was that a motion for a friendly amendment?
I don't do. Yeah. Yes, I guess. So we'd have to.
Are we all in favor of amending this to include the words and allows?
Yes. I am.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So be it.
Retroactively.
Yes. Okay. So that only leads me to one other thing before we move on. We had talked about signage, and I don't know, Josh, you had thought that maybe the Putney School might be able to help with some signage. Did you have a chance to follow up on that?
I have not done that, but I am meeting with Emily tomorrow morning, and I will ask about it.
Okay. All right. And if not, then Karen and I had found some signage that might be appropriate. And we can discuss that at another time. Okay, so town manager's report.
All right, I'm going to move through this as quickly as I can, okay? So
I have faith in you.
All right, Route 5 State Bridge project. As we all know, it started up on Monday. And in your packets is the schedule and the announcement that has been posted on social media and iPutney. The schedule has not been posted anywhere, but has everybody taken a look at the schedule?
I quickly reviewed it. I didn't spend a lot of time on it.
You know, I don't have a whole lot of concerns because Renault Brothers is a really good firm. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can maintain the current schedule and the original schedule. So the bridge will close June 15th and then reopen on June 29th. Just from the schedule, it looks like most of the startup was April 6th, but it's just basically getting, you know, everything in order for them to start construction. But so I'm confident that they'll stay on schedule. If anything changes, I'll let everyone know. On June 2nd, there's going to be a virtual public meeting. We will get that notice out to the public. It will be at 5:30. And I think it's just to touch base with the community and let us know what's happening and, you know, what it's going to look like down the road. So, and you will see things happening down by the mill. So they've had a boom truck. They're working underneath the decking right now to stabilize things so they can work under there. They're marking sidewalks too. You know, I don't know what that's all about. I will find out from Renee, the project engineer. But so that's moving ahead.
I noticed that. Are you referring in front of the, I noticed in front of the Catholic Church, they were marking sidewalks. Is that part of that?
I think it's part of that project, but
I couldn't quite figure out why that would be, but maybe it's just a reference.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the question because I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a point or something that was surveyed.
Exactly. That would be my guess. That's probably what.
Right.
So it's come up several times through the public, and my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, but the state route for diverting traffic from the bridge is to go to 91. Our local route is over Sand Hill. Is that correct?
All tractor trailer trucks will need to take I-91 north to Westminster and come back down Route 5 to the mill. Unless they're turning on to Mill Street, but no tractor trailer traffic is going to be coming through town when the bridge gets closed. Okay, so for a while there, that bridge will be one lane.
But when it's closed, local traffic will have the option of Sand Hill Road as long as they're not driving a tractor trailer.
Right. So the local bus, the current will be running on Sand Hill. And UPS, FedEx trucks will be running Sand Hill. And then all local traffic. And I've already talked to Brian about detour signs when the bridge is closed. So basically it's, up Kimball Hill, over to Sand Hill, back to Route 5. And I suspect, Laura, that most of the traffic you're going to find is from East Putney, because we can't ask them to go all the way through Westminster, get on 91, and then come down. That doesn't make any sense.
No, so, I'm in East Putney. It would be a nightmare for me. So, I'm very grateful.
I would think the other exception to that, to the use of Sand Hill would be, I mean, it's limited by the weight limit on that bridge on Sand Hill. So, for example, a concrete truck, I would guess, would have to go around, even though it's not a tractor trailer.
Right.
So, that would be either tractor trailer or subject to the weight limit of the road, of the bridge on Sand Hill.
Right.
Do you remember what the weight limit is on that bridge?
No, I'd have to look it up.
That's okay. I was just curious.
Yeah, I think like your oil trucks too, propane, I think they would be okay, but we're going to have to monitor that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, we do have a public hearing on public informational meeting on June 2nd.
June 2nd.
It'll be virtual. Okay.
And Karen, presumably either the state or Renault is going to take care of all signage related to that.
They are on Route 5. They are not on our local road. So Kimball Hill, Sand Hill, we have to do the signage for those two roads because we know the roads and Brian will know where to place them strategically. Okay. Because if anything happens and the state doesn't want the liability on a municipal road.
So we probably ought to just remind Brian, he may well have already considered this, but that weight limit posting should be at the ends of Sand Hill as well.
Yeah.
You don't want to get somebody getting to that bridge and having to back all the way out.
Right. Yeah, good point.
Isn't there a weight limit sign? Doesn't there need to be a certain distance from the bridge?
Probably. We should just make sure that it's there. Yeah, I'm not sure how that. I can't remember whether it's at the end or not.
Yeah, and I can't remember.
That's a really good point.
I'm sure they're
no, there. I don't either.
Just like speed limit signs. I'm sure they're there, but
yeah.
But you never
exactly.
He never pays attention to them, especially when she's in the convertible.
You're right, I don't. It's
I
like,
think those suggestions anyway, isn't that? They're just suggestions, right?
Not enforceable.
They're
yeah,
recommendations, not requirements, right?
yeah. All right, moving on. Tax sales status update. I sent you the list. I don't know if you all looked at it, okay? So just a quick update. There's $95,063.46 outstanding in delinquent taxes. The letters went out to the property owners. I've already had one property owner pay one of their 2 delinquent years. So it actually got them off the tax sale list.
Good.
So now they're only 1 year delinquent. So I'm going to pursue, more, hopefully. I probably won't see more until, maybe the first week of June.
Closer. Yeah.
Yeah. But so people, I'm confident they're going to do the best they can. And I will make payment arrangement plans with them. So
On the two properties that are listed that went to tax sale, but we could not sell, why couldn't we sell them? What happened there?
because nobody bid on them.
Is it? Okay. So
But-
desirability of the property.
Right. But it's okay because one of those 2, David,
Mhm.
I have a neighbor that's interested in one of them, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
And then the other one, I had somebody interested, but it doesn't sound like that's going to go through. But again, I'm optimistic. So people, they're calling. And once this list is posted, people will call because they're going to want to know where the property is. And I've already got calls about some of them anyways because of the condition of the property.
Okay.
So the mobile homes are going to be harder because they're personal property and they don't tend to sell.
Right.
And they are all in on Locust Lane,
Mhm.
which is owned by Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. So the land is owned by the trust, and then the mobile homes are personal property to the people living in them.
Well, that was really complicated. I can see that. Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be a mess, but I'll do the best I can with that.
Mm.
There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are delinquent in water and sewer. And of those 6, 3 of them I'm going to call and try to make payment arrangements with. And then the other 3 are going to end up going to tax sale. So, I mean, we have people that haven't paid since 2016 on utility services.
We had this discussion in a meeting before about the enforceability of that. I mean, some of it,
Well-
we can't provide people septic, but we can water. We can shut the water off, but not the septic, right?
Correct. And we can put a lien on the property, but every time there is a change in the amount, you have to, record it again with the land records. So, I'm hoping, a letter that, your property's going to go to tax sale will prompt them to at least call me and make some sort of arrangement.
Have we already, if any of those are related to water, have we already shut off their water, or are those all just related to sewer?
No, they're water and sewer. And we have never I don't know if you guys have ever shut anyone's water off.
Right. I'm not aware of that. Also, I mean, I know that during a pandemic is not the right time to do that anyway. But
Right.
but it seems like a better option than going to tax sale. But maybe it isn't. I don't know. I guess you post them for tax sale and see what happens. But
Well, so on the list, there's one property that owes $8,341. It's water and sewer. It's water and sewer. $8,000. That's
That's
Right.
a lot.
that's a lot of
Yep.
money.
Yep.
But I mean, we can shut their water off, but again, you can't shut sewer off. So
We don't really want to shut either off. We just want to get them to pay.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. In the past, going up for tax sale has been a great motivator, at least to a high percent, correct? At least that's what it seemed like last year. A
Right.
lot of people responded to that. Almost everybody.
Well, I'm going to explain one thing too. So, and I don't know if like this particular $8,300 property for water and sewer, I don't know if they have a mortgage on the property or not. So if they do, the bank automatically will get involved
Right.
because they're not going to want to lose the property to a tax sale. So
Yeah.
they'll pay it and then they just, deal with the property
Add
owner.
on the mortgage. Right.
Right.
So that applies
So
to utilities,
That
correct?
particular property has been in arrears for a long time, but we've never taken it to tax sale before. Is that correct, Karen?
That's correct.
Right.
And that's because they're only behind on utilities, not in taxes. Is that
Correct.
correct?
That's
Got it.
correct.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
So when we revisit our policies too for water and sewer, maybe we can put something in there that reflects a better way to collect for utility services. If people there should be like 2016 is a long time. That's 4 years in arrears.
Right.
And if the users are paying for the system, it's not fair to the other users that, there's almost like $20,000 in arrears for utilities.
Yeah, no, and I mean, again, I would just say that I think that, going forward, when we do revisit that policy, maybe we look at, at a year out, your water gets shut off because you got to pay it.
mhm.
So, because otherwise you're going to be we've talked about this before with the tax sale concept, and maybe the shutting off the water is the carrot or the small stick before the big stick,
Right.
Of saying, hey, we're not mucking around. And if you don't want to go to tax sale, you got to pay this. So we're going to shut your water off until you do. And if you still don't pay it, then you're going to go to tax sale. So,
Yeah. Right.
And we got to do that more quickly too, because like you said, if a bank is involved, then it will get paid more quickly.
it'll get done.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's really actually in their best interest too, of course.
Right.
So we lost Laura again.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, you're there. Not on
All right.
film. Okay.
So anyway, we're out about $116,604 in revenue right now. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And I'll keep you posted as I go through the process. And again, I'm optimistic. Broadband status update. In your packets is like a 32-page feasibility study. I don't really want to talk about it tonight because it's going to take up some time. So I think we should table it. And just some short notes that I spoke to Sue West at Wyndham Regional today. There's going to be a webinar in June. We are moving ahead. We're still on schedule. There's 10 towns now in the Deerfield Valley Communication Union District. And, oh boy, what happened? Whoops. Sorry, guys. I got distracted here. I thought I lost you. So there's 10 towns now in the new Communication Union District, and it looks like that's going to be the district for the entire Windham County, which is a good thing because this allows municipal select boards to vote whether they want to join or not instead of having a town vote. So
My recollection is the last time we talked about that, there were only like 2 or 3 towns involved in that. Is that correct, Karen?
yeah, there's
Yeah.
10. There's 10
Great.
now. So the business plan is going to be the next step, and that basically is going to look at how this district will work together, the cost to build the infrastructure, and then the fundraising in order to build that infrastructure. So there's a lot going on with that right now. And like I said, we can talk about it more in detail after we go through the feasibility study.
When is that meeting, Karen? In June?
They haven't set a date yet, Laura, but I will keep
Okay.
you posted.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. And by the way, there's supposedly some funding that's coming out of the CARES package because of the COVID-19. So Windham Regional is looking at that, and the other towns. So they're trying to secure some funding right now. So this might move a little bit quicker than we anticipated. So that's my spiel on broadband for tonight. You all set, David?
Oh, I could give you a list, but anyway.
I just wanted to let you know the listers have sent out change of value letters. There were 161 letters. This gives people the opportunity to grieve if they choose to. The listers grievance has scheduled May 27th through GoToMeeting to do all their grievances, if any come to them. I don't even think they had one last year, so I'll keep you posted on that.
That's unusual, though. That was a first. I think that was a first for me.
Yep. So, and then let's see, abatement. There's an abatement meeting. Jonathan has set that up for May 28th. That is basically with his abatement board to kind of go over like the GoToMeeting and how they're going to handle abatements. We already.
But that includes us, David, if you're wondering.
That's right. So the
I didn't make
select
it
board.
last year's abatement meeting, but I wanted to this year. Yep.
Yeah. The select board, JP, the treasurer, or I should say the interim treasurer, Lissa Harlow. I'll be in that meeting too. Then I believe he's going to schedule the abatement meeting for June 11th, which is the last day for our tax sale properties to respond to me. So the timing of that coincides. So I'll keep you posted on all of that. Any questions? Okay. Beatrice Aiken Trail cleanup. So the Beatrice Aiken Trail is off of Old Route 5. We've had some complaints. So people have been using the trail, but they noticed a structure that was being built out there, kind of like a wood structure. And there's been a couple fire pits and there's empty beer cans out there. So I asked the deputy sheriff if he could go up there and just kind of check it out. Dana Shepard did walk up in there. There is a four-wheeler trail, and it looks like it's coming off of Shagbark Hill. But because there's a couple homes up there, we're not really sure who is driving down there and who is hanging out and building structures. So Anne and Lionel and Ellen Strong, maybe, a couple other people went out on Sunday. They cleaned up the trail because there were some trees down. They took down the structure. And they did post some signage stating that this is Town of Putney property. It is for public trail access, but whatever you take in, you take out. So,
And
hopefully-
presumably no motorized vehicles?
Yeah, none. There's not
Right.
some,
With the exception of four-wheelers.
No, I don't think they're supposed to be.
they're not supposed to
Oh,
be. in
okay.
there.
No, I thought you meant, all right. I misunderstood your question.
Yep. So, we're going to monitor that a little bit because we don't really know who they are or where they're actually coming from. We can presume where they're coming from, but because the trail leads right up to Shagbark Hill. Josh? Do we have?
Sorry, you froze up a little bit.
Oh.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Karen froze on.
Well, yeah, I think it was you freezing, but yeah.
We all take turns.
Yeah.
I know, right? Technology. So that's what I wanted to let you know about Beatrice Aiken.
Thank you.
Census, I had something on that. So
We're over
encouraging
50% now in the state. We've
What
gotten
was
up over 50%. We've gotten up over 50% participation in the state. I don't know about Putney particularly, but I know in the state we finally gotten over 50%. It was
right. So we
pretty
want to
dire.
encourage people to, fill out the census. It's very important because we do get funding, and at this point, every little bit's going to help. So Jonathan was on a webinar today for census, and the two takeouts or the two takeaways that he got out of that was Windham County only has 35.3% response rate. Pittman County has 70%. And then the census does not mail anything to post office boxes. So anybody with a post office box is not going to get a card to remind them or tell them where to go to fill out census. And I don't know
Laura,
how many
I can't remember whether we talked about this before, Laura, but if there's any way, if you're in communication with the Putney Mutual Aid to encourage them to encourage people, that would be great.
Yeah, I can do that. I know that like the organization I work for is actually working with the census to encourage folks through our organization to do it. They've really done a great job of trying to outreach. It's just unfortunately, I think in part this is the COVID crisis has really impacted their ability to reach people the way they normally would. And so these numbers have kind of stagnated because of that in some part. But yeah, I will encourage anybody and everybody to encourage folks to participate in the census. It's so important towards our funding, and in this state, not so much towards our federal representation, but it does indicate our state representation. So like right now we have 2 representatives for Putney, Dummerston, Westminster, if our population is drastically changed through this, we could see that representation change locally. So
Right.
could be
Yeah.
revisited. So please, please, please go fill out your census. It's really easy to do
Yes.
online. You know?
Green Up Day is May 30th. So we are doing Green Up. We do have bags at Town Hall. We do have them out on the front step near the front doors. There's 5 to a roll. So if anybody wants to stop by the Town Hall and just grab, some bags, we encourage them to do that as well. We did talk about, and I know we don't do this, so Brian Harlow always puts a truck down at Town Hall, and everybody brings all their Green Up bags and tires and whatever to the dump truck at Town Hall. Now, this is an idea, and maybe we can implement it next year, but and this may encourage more people to participate, but if we were able to do Green Up on all the roads and then possibly put the bags down at like major intersections and have the highway department pick them up on, the following Monday, that may get people to participate a little more.
Just because of visibility, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe like bus stops.
Yeah, bus stops,
Like school bus stops.
At any intersection on any road, because like Hickory Ridge, how many side roads you have, if those bags were all on Hickory Ridge, truck could go up, pick everything up, and then, go back to the highway department.
Right.
I think also, like I was on River Road the other day and somebody like dumped a television, one of the big tubes. There's a TV laying out there, and I'm like going, really? I'm like,
Bummer.
what is wrong with people, So that too, if somebody's walking down a road and there's, a big stuff like that, you put it in a pile, and perhaps maybe we can get the highway department to pick it up. It might be too late to do it this year, but it might be something we should consider for next year.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I'm curious. I have not dove too far into Green Up Day media, but is there an educational campaign happening to help people understand how to safely handle sharps that are found? Because we did have last year several incidents of people finding sharps throughout the community. It's going to happen. It's a part of, frankly, it's a part of the opioid crisis, and I would really love to see education around that so people know what to do when they find them and don't feel panicked in the moment.
There is education on that, Laura, and I can have Jonathan. So Jonathan is our Green Up coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So I can have him get information out there.
Fantastic.
There's a couple posters that are going to be posted around town too, one at Town Hall and at the co-op and at the post office. So maybe we can get information on our website too for the sharps. Mm-hmm. But there is a special way to handle those.
Yeah, it's not, and it's not that complicated, but it should be done with caution.
Right. Education
and care.
Mm-hmm. Well, and making also, if we're having highway folks picking up bags, you can't have sharps floating around in an open bag.
No, and that's why it's so important that it's done properly, that, it's ideally folks are educated in advance so they know to have some kind of plastic container that's lidded that they can tape and mark that this has sharps in it. And then I know that the dump takes them for free. So, or the I call it the dump. That's what I grew up with it being called, but it's the Waste Management Center.
That's true also, just since Karen mentioned it, for televisions, I believe virtually all electronics they take for free as well.
They do.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
Okay,
right.
moving on.
You had Landmark, Recycling, Library, and Putney Public Pool still.
Yeah, so the library, Mominy Painters has their sign out in front, so I called Emily, and she's like, yes, they already washed the building. So the building's been washed. They plan on staining it next week. And I already talked to Emily about doing one coat. She's going to ask Mo to give her an estimate to do 2 coats just on the south side of the building, like we discussed.
Right.
So she's going to get that, and then and I'll let you know what it is. So we'll have to compare that with the 2 coats for the full building and see what the difference is. So hopefully I can get that before our next meeting. Well, I'm going to ask for it before the next meeting, so we have it. Landmark College, they will be doing a virtual commencement on May 30th, which is a Saturday. I spoke to John McLaren, and he also mentioned that their high school program that they usually have in the summertime, they won't be holding that because of the COVID. Their hopes, like any other school, is that students can return in the fall, but everybody's trying to be optimistic.
Sorry, Karen, did you say they're having a commencement ceremony in person?
No, virtual.
Oh, okay. Same,
Yeah.
same for Putney School. That
Yeah.
there will not be an in-person graduation this year, and also they are not running their summer programs this year.
Yeah.
So same story, but also hoping to be in person in the fall.
Yes. Fingers crossed.
The school district, the greater school district, sent out an update saying pretty much the same thing. And they're planning for many different possibilities. So they're planning for the possibility of partially returning in the fall. They're planning for the possibility of remote learning in the fall, and for actually a full returnage. So fingers crossed.
All right. So Putney Public Pool status. Because of David's business and having fiberglass in the pool, I asked David to go look at the pool. Have you seen the pictures, Josh?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have a big problem,
Yes.
and I don't know how to tackle it yet. I have a call into Carol Lalott down at in Brattleboro. I'm going to make a phone call to Falvey Pool. Twin State that Joe had spoken to, they're busy until July. David did go inspect the pool, and David, you want to fill us in?
Yeah, we need to refiberglass the whole ramp, basically, from down from the top where you start in down to where it connects with the bottom, and then about 2 more feet in a strip the width of the ramp. It looks like water infiltration between the fiberglass and the cement underneath it, starting at the top of the ramp between the wall, the ramp, and the way you walk on the ramp, above the 2 suction inlets for the recirculation system. And it's lifted. Basically, we're going to have to cut through the fiberglass with a grinder at the base of the wall, strip all of it that's loose off, rough it up, clean it, and refiberglass it. So,
What kind of expense is that, David?
you know, I put in pools when I was 26 for a year, and We did. That was a very long time ago, and it looks like, and I'm guessing, and it's been a long time, but because I don't know the cost of materials for this, I'd say 2 guys who work hard could get this stripped and cleaned in most of a day, and then reapplied and down and painted in most of a day. So that's what it looks like to me. As long as there's nothing underneath there in the cement that I haven't seen yet that needs to be dealt with, and then we've got to jackhammer out any cracks in the cement, and then hydraulic cement that and let it dry, and then fiberglass it to make it bigger. So I think basically it's unusable the way it is. It doesn't seem safe the way it is, and you're letting water in under to damage the rest of the liner. And so it's time to fix it now. Get the fiberglass, get me a grinder and a young back.
My understanding, though, is of the governor's restrictions currently that, when I read them, I questioned it's so incredibly restrictive for pools. Are we going to, is it realistic for us to even open?
Yeah, it seems like, Karen and I had to talk about that. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And probably this is the thing that, goes on the back burner. And there's as she was saying, most of the pool companies are, backlogged right now anyway, because everybody wants to get their pool up and running. And so, and we haven't got a estimate or a contract with anybody yet. And who does our maintenance? Do we have a maintenance contract? Who do we?
Salvi, right?
No. Simon's operations, Joe, has always been taking care of our pool.
So does he just do that? He keeps the pumps running, does the plumbing and that stuff, but not the rest of it.
So I had Tim Carrillo. He has his own pool company, and he patched it last year, the small crack, and he said, yeah, this job is way too big for me. So he's only one person, and they're all busy doing other things right now. So I'm going to look into a couple different companies, get an estimate, and see what happens. But given that the governor is restricting and you can only have 10 people, in a pool area, I mean, it limits what we can do anyway, like with swim lessons, open pool, movie night, all of that. So, we talked about a GoFundMe page too. And, I want to talk to Larry about that some more, because Ruby, who has left our meeting, she had brought it up 2 years ago, because of
I think it was Jamie. I actually think it was Jamie that was pushing for a GoFundMe for this. I could be mistaken, but
no,
I thought
you
it
might
was
be
Jamie.
right. Yeah, Jamie and Ruby have both been in on the pool thing anyway. So
they have pretty, close goals.
Right. And maybe this is a, Putney mutual aid thing that can get off the ground, But we have to be careful when we start, doing GoFundMe pages and having other people, I don't know what the liability is to the town, and I just don't want GoFundMe pages popping up for things in Putney that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
No, I do think I'm guessing it's important though that we, regardless of what the pool schedule and opening ability this summer is probably important to do this repair regardless, because I'm guessing it's not something that's going to improve with time if we try to ignore it. So.
Right. So let me get some prices, and I'm going to do my best to get them as quickly as possible. and then we can make a decision on how to address this. But I definitely agree with everyone that it needs to be dealt with now.
So we store the pool empty in the winter, right? We drain it out.
No.
No, there's
No.
water that stays in it. It's gross.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
It's really gross.
the reason behind that is, the reason we don't drain it is
I've never understood it.
it's drained now.
No, so Joe drains it down to the jets. You know, where the jets are, where the water comes out. So he drains it down that far. And then he winterizes everything in the pool house and, you know, shuts everything down.
It's a less common practice, I think, now, David, than it used to be to drain it all the way. And I don't know what the reasoning behind that is, but that totally anecdotal, but I feel like I've seen it's more usual to see pools filled now than it used to be. And I don't know why that is.
So
they're usually covered, though. We don't cover ours.
Yeah.
It's really, it's weird
Yeah.
the way we treat it.
Because the area that's affected is above the water line, quite a bit above the water line now.
Right.
And even though
Right.
rainwater will make it worse, it won't be as bad as if it's filled with water and we don't repair it. So I don't know how much damage will happen from this point forward if we don't use the pool and don't fill it. So I mean, it definitely needs to be done, and the sooner we can do it, the better, but I'm not sure how much worse it's going to get. You know, it might progress another foot and might not, you know. I don't know how much water is in there, but
my concern would be if we go into next winter without repairing it, freeze thaw damage and cracking of the concrete. So I think at a minimum it should be done. And again, I'm just talking. I don't know for sure, but I think we should be aware that that's a possibility of a risk. So
That makes sense.
I've never really worked on a pool this design, a fully cement poured pool. Sprayed with fiberglass. It's interesting. I've never seen one. It looks like it would be really prone to cracking because of the movement of concrete.
Yes.
Most of the pools we put in only had a concrete ring and the top 3 to 4 feet, and then they were sand filled and had a vinyl or plastic liner, which move, tend to not crack, are much more easily serviced and don't pose this problem. Gunite's the best, but it's so expensive, sprayed gunite. But I don't know.
And that's what, Brattleboro uses that gunite.
Yeah.
Josh, historically, how often does this pool crack?
I don't really know. It's not a problem that we've I mean, there's often sort of small repairs, but not anything of this scale that I'm aware of. And I don't know whether I'm just not aware of it, but, we're also, I mean, I can't remember, Brad did a bunch of concrete work on it 10, 12 years ago, something like that. But previous to that, I mean, that pool is, age is catching up with us with the pool also. I mean, it's been there for a long time now. So, we may at some point be looking at a more expensive decision-making process, and maybe we're getting closer to that point. I don't know.
This problem, looking at
it's got to be at least 20 years, right?
So
20 years old? Oh, it's more than that. It's pushing, probably pushing 40, I would think.
Really?
Yeah, you might be right, Josh, because my husband used to swim in that pool when he was a kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was that it had. Okay, that's interesting.
So
That's
I think
really interesting.
the problem's been happening for a while. Looking at the fiberglass, it's been leaking between the fiberglass and the cement for quite a while, but we weren't aware of it because the weight of the water held
the fiberglass down. Right.
And then you put in the water and it pops up, and when it pops up, it cracks. Or as it gets loose enough and people walk on it, it cracks. But I can't imagine this problem just happened. This has been happening for a while.
Yeah.
Right. And Beverly Wright, who is in charge of the pool during the summer, she said it's been like that for at least 2 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, Brad would have more history on it, Karen, if you wanted.
Yeah.
He would know,
Okay.
because again, he definitely did concrete work on it a while ago. I can't remember when. And I think it was his dad who poured it originally, so he probably
All right,
was.
well, maybe I'll talk to him. He might know how to handle that. Or maybe he has some connections. He knows somebody that might be able to.
Yeah.
I'll call Brad. Good recommendation. All right. So on
The
that
only
note,
thing we haven't covered, Karen, is recycling. You had that on your list.
oh no, that was supposed to be Green Up Day. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I meant to say Green Up, not recycling.
Oh, okay.
That's a whole nother topic.
Oh gosh, yes it is.
So warrants.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants as presented upon completion of review.
And I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Payroll warrant dated May 22nd, 2020 in the amount of $12,849.62.
I'm pretending to sign it.
And that was noticeably less people, Karen. Is that just, have we shifted? I mean, I know we have less people working, obviously, but it felt to me like we've had a number of employees listed on the past payrolls, but with zero payment to them. And this time it was a smaller number of people. Is it the same thing? Just now we're not.
No, that was a very good observation, Josh. So we did not get timesheets for the fire department prior to Tom going on vacation.
I just wondered if we were so far down in accidents, and I mean, I know we've had a few doozies, but I was wondering if the calls were so far diminished
No.
that
No,
we weren't seeing hours.
No, we requested timesheets to be submitted prior to departure on vacation, but it's an oversight, and unfortunately,
Happens.
the on-call personnel will have to wait another 2 weeks at this point. So, accounts payable warrant dated May 16th through May 22nd, 2020 in the amount of $46,745.52. So David, on that warrant is Keith Short Plumbing and Heating.
Oh,
Yeah,
I noticed. Yeah.
I just read that, yeah.
So
That's for the shower?
that is for the decontamination shower at the fire department.
Got it.
That is a reimbursable expense through COVID.
It is, good.
Did we ever get the FEMA question answered?
The
Sorry,
grant.
David, you have a question about the warrants? Yeah.
I do. We paid Bob NASA $140 for something.
Yeah, we did.
What's that?
So those were for PPE for masks.
Doesn't Tom get masks through the, what's it called? The reserve?
Yes,
or
the state
whatever.
stockpile. Yes.
Stockpile.
Yeah.
So tired.
So,
Right.
I can't answer your question.
Are these special? There's just curious about that.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
I can't answer
lots of
that.
different PPE. So was it necessarily masks or?
No, they were masked. It's on the
Oh,
invoice.
okay.
Yep.
Hmm.
Let me see if I can find it.
What is Endyne Incorporated?
Endyne is a lab. It's a testing lab for our
Diamonds?
samples for water.
Okay.
Very expensive. We might have to start looking around for other contractors or labs. I've been monitoring the expenses at the treatment plant, and every year they keep going up. And I have to believe there's other companies out there that can do the same testing for less. But
Do we have anything else?
I don't. Karen?
I'm all set.
Moving on to
So Laura, the answer
Karen.
to your question, so the FEMA grant through the firefighters, I ended up going through a different portal. It's a grant portal specific for PUA. So that's the one we're gonna utilize that grant.
Nice.
Great. So we will be able to get some back.
Yeah. It's still a
Fantastic.
lengthy process, but I'll work my way through it. And,
Sorry.
the other thing too is, I'm just going to mention this, that any expense that we ask for reimbursement has to be directly related to COVID-19. You know, I have about $5,000 in expenses that state they're COVID-19, but some of them are not going to be reimbursable. So COVID-19 means PPEs and overtime for personnel, like first responders, okay? So all of Tom's time, he's a salaried person, so we cannot get any reimbursement for any of his overtime. Even though he put in 200 hours, he's a salaried employee, it's already budgeted. So, you know, on call is on call. I mean, they can work 40 hours a week and, you know, if they're on call. So it's going to be really hard to get reimbursed for labor for the first responders. So anything that we ask for reimbursement is going to be basically an expense item, not a labor related item.
It would seem like, though, if you could show that they were coming in for something that's directly COVID related rather than their regular duties, that should be reimbursable. And I also get that that's not always the way it works, but.
You know, we can try to submit what we think is COVID related, and the worst that can happen is they're going to reject it.
So would they, the only concern I would have is, would they reject the whole claim or pieces of the claim? Will they itemize their rejection?
I think they're just going to itemize the items and then, yeah, not the whole request, but the thing is, if we drop underneath the $3,300 threshold, they're going to kick it out anyway.
So So before you go through all the work, how do we go through the list to make sure that we have fairly confident about what we submit being accepted, so you don't do all the work for nothing?
I've been through the list, and there's a lot of it that's not going to be reimbursed. So
Do you feel
70
confident about 3,300's worth, though?
No, I
Right.
don't. So
Well, I mean, to David's point, if it's a whole lot of work, then maybe it's not worth it. If it's not a whole lot of work, maybe it's worth it. And if they don't kick it out and we get $3,400 worth, great.
right.
Yeah.
But if it's
It's kind of the
38
conversation we had
worth
last
of work,
week.
if it's $3,800 worth of work to get $3,400, then don't bother, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And we're only going to get reimbursed 75%.
So it begs the next question: if there's a lot of stuff on that list that you don't think we're going to get reimbursed for, then what were we spending $5,000 on, and should we look at that?
Good question. That's a very good question. And I have a list, so anytime you want to stop in, I can.
Okay. All right.
We can go through that list.
All right, thank you for going over that with us. Other business, it has come to me through a few different folks that the parking situation on Kimball Hill and in front of the Putney General Store is less than desirable, that folks are parking overnight, sometimes taking up 2 spots, sometimes leaving their vehicles in front of the Putney General Store for long periods of time. Karen and I talked about this a little bit today as far as the Putney General Store is concerned, and I passed along what you had said, Karen, to Mike. And he said he was going to try and think about ways to do some positive signing. He doesn't really like the idea of putting up general store only, but he would like to find a way to positively message that these parking spots are really important for them. And then as far as Kimball Hill goes, I don't really know what to tell folks when they are upset that spots are taken up the way that they're being taken up, and I don't know that there's really anything we can do about it. So I guess I'm just bringing it up. Josh, I know you have a ton of experience with this and our parking issues in Putney, and I'm curious as to what the conversations have looked like in the past.
There's very little we can do. I mean, there are, the landowners have specific rights to specific places, but we have no authority to enforce that for them. There have been agreements with various different parcel owners in different capacities, and sometimes they hold for a while and sometimes they don't. It tends to be, in my experience, pretty cyclical. It tends to be a problem for a while, then tends to sort of seem to go away for a bit. And, it's related to occupancy numbers and the particular occupants, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I'm not aware of any time that we as a governing entity have had a whole lot of success in trying to manage it for anybody much, because I don't think we have either the legal right or the personnel to do much about it. I think probably positive signage would be the best way to continue to try to manage it, and maybe we're willing to participate in that in some way if there's a sort of proposal brought before us, but I'm not sure.
I'm curious on Kimball Hill, so if you're headed towards Putney Central on the right hand side, those spots that are in front of houses that are marked out, are those spots actually technically do those buildings have ownership over those particular spots, or are
Only-
those town spots?
I don't think they own them. It's the town right away.
Yeah,
Okay,
but there
that makes
are
sense to me.
agreements. Yeah, it's definitely in the right of way. But for example, I mean, this may have shifted since Neil Maddow, he owned all three of the buildings up Kimball Hill from the general store. And there was an agreement, and I don't know where you would find this, Karen, if you were able to. There was an agreement at some point about allocation of spots for those apartments versus allocation of spots, because since he also owns the what used to be the pizza parlor, there's space behind in basically in Christian Square in that parking lot area behind there. And there was an agreement with Neil as to capacity for parking, but I don't remember the details of it. But we might be able to find that, and that might clarify a little bit of it. I would guess, the person who might know more about this than others is Lisa Papazian, because she has tried to manage it for the Historical Society, and I think she was on the board when that agreement with Neil was made, perhaps. So might be worth asking her if she has any memory. But yeah, the only thing I know we can mandate is no parking from whatever it is, November 15th to April 1st, or for the snowplows.
Right.
For overnight parking.
Exactly. Other than that,
And
I don't have jurisdiction.
And that's the only time overnight parking is banned, is during those winter months, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
There's some confusion on that as well. So I will clarify that.
It's mostly about courtesy,
Right.
Yeah. 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 All right. Thank you.
Neighbors being neighbors. Yeah.
I think we can bring that up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's been complicated for as long as I can remember. I mean, it just, again, sometimes it rears its head and sometimes it doesn't. And
Well, just to, let you guys know, when the Route 5 bridge construction actually starts, the general store is going to lose those parking spaces on Route 5, for the construction. So it's going to be even harder. So
yeah, they might want to consider signage before that happens.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good recommendation, to just point out what the schedule is to them and okay.
Yeah. And of course, the other thing about that, but I mean, it's sort of irrelevant right now, but Next Stage has an agreement with Basketville where they use their parking, but there's no events, so that's irrelevant. But Basketville isn't going to be available anyway because the bridge is going to be closed. So that's also.
Yeah. The timing of all of this, I have to say, is actually shaking out kind of well. Traffic is reduced. We're, that's as far as like doing this to the bridge and all of that. It's not too bad as far as timing goes if we're going to have a pandemic. But I did point out to Mike the history of Baskerville supporting community parking, and he wasn't aware of that. So,
but it also would be worth reviewing if you could find that agreement with Neil, because it does allow for parking. The whole concept was that tenants of those three buildings above the general store, in theory, are supposed to park behind the pizza parlor at least some of the time. And I again, I don't know the details, but reminding people of that. Neil is no longer the owner of what used to be Mellon Store, the next one above.
There's 4 apartments
Jocelyn,
in there. Yeah,
Jocelyn, yeah, but there's a number of apartments in there,
4.
and there's
4.
competition for those
Yeah.
spots. So, and I'm guessing she inherited the agreement that Neil had, but I don't know that. So it would be worth looking for that.
But during the wintertime, they have to park behind the old pizza place. But during the summertime, it's, they can park on Kimball Hill. Now, Neil also has apartments in that green building, and he's got parking behind the pizza place as well. But again, during good weather, they're all parking on the street.
Right. So that's more about messaging and speaking. I mean, like, talking to Jocelyn and asking her to ask her tenants to park behind the pizza place. And, it's all about neighbor stuff.
Right.
Are people going to quit? Not all the time, obviously. So.
And Mike and Kim are being really lovely about the parking in front of the general store. Their feelings are, as long as we're closed, it's open to anyone. They have no problem with folks parking there when they're closed. They just really ask that folks don't park there when they're open for long periods of time, especially in this time of doing curbside service. They need those spots in order to be able to serve people well. So, but I think that they're being very thoughtful in their approach to it. And so I will pass along some of this information. And then just a friendly nudge to you guys, we still have to schedule time to do Karen's review. So, I'll just keep reminding you, we'll get there. I'll send out an email again. So, all right, so the one other thing I was going to bring up is we have been doing executive sessions in the same GoToMeeting that we're doing our regular meeting in. And I noticed when I was reviewing Brattleboro's protocol, and it makes sense to me, that we should actually be jumping out of this meeting and going into a separate one so that nobody could accidentally come into our meeting during an executive session. Though we would notice somebody coming in, there's a chance that we could miss it.
Yeah, but you can lock the meeting.
That's what I was going to say.
Come in.
Okay, are we doing that?
Yes, during our executive sessions, yes. We turn off the recorder and then I lock the meeting.
Okay. All right, fantastic. Then let's not worry about it. I just noticed that and was like, oh, we haven't been doing that. So that's good to know.
No, BCTV showed me how to do that.
Well, thank you, BCTV. They are wonderful for so many reasons.
Yes.
All right. So unless we need an executive session.
No, we do not.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Wait, our next meeting date. I know you're excited. We're skipping. We're not going to do a emergency management meeting next week. We're going to take a week off and regroup. And our next meeting date is June 3rd. And then we will go back to the emergency management schedule until it is no longer needed. And now, please jump all over that motion.
Motion to adjourn.
And seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Thank you
Night,
so much.
Right.
Good job.
Yep.
Oh, enjoy the week off.